just wanted to say thank you so much, and thank you for watching today online. If it's your first time joining us, we just wanted to say welcome, and we're so glad that you're here. Today we're kicking off a brand new series called It's Just a Phase. And what we're going to do over the next 3 weeks is we're going to be talking about what it looks like to be a part of and exist within a healthy family, how you can parent that way, how your kids can be a part of that as well. So we're so excited about this series. In just a few minutes, actually what we're going to do is we're going to be doing an opener for all of you 90s kids, right? So anybody who grew up in the 90s, you're going to love every part of this opener here in just a few minutes, because we're going to do a throwback back to TGIF. It's going to be great. I also want to let you know that if you're not following us on Facebook, Instagram, or Twitter, that's one of the best places to find out all the information about our church and what's going on here. Well, I think we're about to get started. We'll see you in just a second.
This day and age, to reading good news on the newspaper page. Love and tradition, the grand design. Some people say it's even harder to find. Well, then there must be some magic clue inside these gentle walls. 'Cause all I see is a tower of dreams, real love bursting out of every sea.
Remembers that song? All right, let's sing this one together.
Do today that all you see is arguments and movies and sex on TV.
But where are those good old-fashioned values
on which we used to rely?
Lucky there's a family guy. Lucky there's a man who positively can do all the things that make us laugh and cry. He's our family.
This next one is one of my personal favorites. You guys can sing along with us. Come on. Let's get some hands up like
this. Whatever happened to predictability? The milkman, the paper boat, evening TV. Miss your old familiar friends waiting just around the bend. To hold on to, everywhere you look, there's a face of somebody who needs you. So you're there and you're all alone. A light is waiting to carry you home. Everywhere you look, everywhere you look. Shoo-be-da-ba-ba-da.
All right, this next one, we're going to throw it back to the year 1990. Come on.
Because she's here.
In West Philadelphia, born and raised, I've got to put it upside down. And I'd like to take a minute, just sit right there. I'll tell you how I became the prince of a town called Bel Air. All right, here we go. In West Philadelphia, born and raised, on the playground is where I spent most of my days. Chilling out, maxing, relaxing, all cool, and all shooting some b-ball outside of school. When a couple of guys who were up to no good started making trouble in my neighborhood. I got in one little fight and my mom got scared. She said, "You're moving with your auntie and uncle to Bel Air." A whistle for a cab, and when it came near, the license plate said fresh with a dice in the mirror. If anything, I considered this cab was rare, but I thought, nah, forget it, you're home to Bel Air. I pulled up to a house about 7 or 8, and I yelled to the cabby, "You're home, smell you later." Looked at my kingdom, I was finally there to sit on my throne as the Prince of Bel Air.
How fun is that? Yes, you're in the right place. Yes, this is church. It's okay.
It's okay to have a lot of fun in church, in fact. Thank you for being here. Good morning. Do you guys remember some of those songs from 80s and 90s TV sitcoms? It's kind of amazing how quickly the memories can come flashing back. Well, my name is Mike, and we're so happy that you guys are joining us today. Hey, if this happens to be your very first time ever joining us, welcome. We are so glad that you are here. Our mission here at Kensington is to see everyone transformed and mobilized by Jesus. And here's the thing, that looks different for everyone. And we're just so happy that you're here to wrestle to see what that might look like for you. So we are here to serve you. And we actually put together a website. It's actually a landing page with a form on it. You can find it online at startingpoint.today. Feel free to pull out your phone right now and go to it. It's just a form so you can share with us a little bit about your expectations and your needs so we can just be here for you. Today is a great day to be joining us too, because we're starting a brand new series, and it's called It's Just a Phase. And Patrick Holden, our lead pastor, has got a great message. We're going to have some more music, and we're going to have about 70 minutes of fun in all. Now, I do have just a couple of quick announcements for you. The first one is in your program just for reference. Coming up a week from Wednesday, not this Wednesday, because this Wednesday is what? Valentine's Day. Yes, guys, remember that so you're not in the doghouse. So this Wednesday, you're going to be with your honey. Next Wednesday, the 21st, we're having what's called Render. And Render is our monthly midweek worship service. And it's not in this room. It's actually in a room across the hall, and it's more intimate. And it's a great way to make a big church feel much, much smaller. And it's a lot of worship. Patrick's going to give like an abbreviated message. And then there's built-in time to just mingle and meet some other people. So you don't need to sign up. Just show up. It's a week from Wednesday. The next announcement is going to make you happy. Whether you care about anything that I'm talking about, this announcement is going to make you happy. Why? Because we're going to talk about summertime. Specifically, what summertime looks like at Spring Hill Camp. Let's take a look at this video together.
Spring Hill Day Camps is chock full of fun and kids. We set up camp at different churches.
We run camp from 9 a.m. to 4 p.m., and there is not a second that kids aren't engaged.
Typical day in the life of a Spring Hill kid is crazy, hectic, exciting, energetic.
A typical day starts off with a dance party.
We get to every morning go to large group, and there's always music when we come in.
And then we go to small group where we learn more about who God is through different Bible stories.
I love that the kids can come and have people in their lives that are excited about Jesus Christ, and they can associate a ton of fun with the name of Jesus.
My favorite part of day camp is doing all the different activities. The funny thing is, not Rockwall has a easy side. Not easy side is not very easy.
Each activity hopefully is challenging to the kids and something new, or we put a spin on it where they're experiencing it in a new way.
All my counselors are really, really nice. They've taught me about Jesus and God.
We stick to the gospel essentials. We want to have a clear message that they know that Jesus Christ is the reason that we're here, that the gospel is the good news, and that it can change their lives.
This is what the church is supposed to look like, I think. You know, being in fellowship with other believers, eating together, sharing meals, being in prayer.
It's very fun, and you learn about God, and you can tell other people about Him.
I would say to another parent that it is a must. It is something that you really want to try, and you would find out why it's so wonderful.
You should bring your kids to Spring Hill because it's awesome.
Yeah, Spring Hill is awesome. There's no question about it. You guys, I'd like to introduce you to Taylor Leal. Taylor is our director of K-Kids here at Kensington.
Wow.
And Taylor, Spring Hill really is a remarkable place, isn't it?
It is. we say, like, it is our favorite part of the whole year for our elementary students, and I can't believe we're already talking about summer. It's crazy to me. But yes, and I know parents, they prioritize their vacations and stuff around Spring Hill because it's just that awesome. And so we want to invite you guys. Sign up starts this Wednesday. Again, oh my gosh, we're signing up for things that are happening in the summer. It's amazing. But I want to get you guys to sign up now because we have an early bird special, and it is $189, and the price just goes up after each month. And so that's the bummer this year. But it'll also help you guys schedule your vacations. I know we value our summers here in Traverse City, and so we want to plan ahead. And so this is your opportunity to do that for your kiddos who are in elementary. And if you don't have kids, or maybe you want to be a part of Spring Hill Day Camps, there's a ton of ways that you guys can get plugged in and volunteer with us. We actually need host homes. So the Spring Hill staff, they come and they stay in Traverse City for a whole week, and they need a place to stay. So we ask our families here to host 2, 3, 4, as many Spring Hill staff as you can at your house, and that's kind of how we help them. Another way that we help them is we provide lunch for the staff members. So there's usually about 20 of them, and we make lunch for them here at our campus and provide that for them. And then we're also looking for student volunteers. So if you have a middle school or high school student, they can be what we call a CIT, and they can be a camp counselor in training. So come be a part of that. There's sign up in the lobby. If you guys sign up today, actually, for any of these volunteer opportunities, we'll give you a popsicle. We're thinking about summer, right? So,
how's that for summer?
Yeah, I think that's it. That was a big spiel, but we really love day camps. If that's all you hear me say this morning, sign up. It is really awesome.
Yep, there's a big sign out in the lobby. You guys, how about a round of applause for Taylor?
Yeah, thank you, guys.
All right, so that is all we have in terms of announcements. We're going to get started, and Taylor and the K-Kids are going to be back on stage in just a second. But before we do that, or before we do anything else, I'm going to invite you guys to please stand and stretch out a little bit, turn to someone around you, and share with them your favorite TV sitcom of all time.
Hey everybody, this is Patrick, and I just wanted to say thanks again for watching our service today online and being a part of this community. Now we know that you might have some questions as you watch the service today and want to find out a little bit more information about who we are. And so we've created an environment for you to do just that. Simply go to startingpoint.today. That's startingpoint.today, and fill out that short form, and one of our staff members will reach out to you very shortly and answer any questions that you have about our church and about who we are. Again, thanks so much for watching. We'll be back at the end of the service today to give you a little bit more information, but we'll see you here in just a few minutes.
stronger than Superman, faster than the Flash, bigger than the Hulk. Jesus, what a friend. Stronger than Superman, faster than the Flash, bigger than the Hulk. Jesus, what a friend. Stronger than Superman, faster than the Flash, bigger than the Hulk. And Jesus, what a friend. Stronger than Superman, faster than the Flash, bigger than the Hulk. And Jesus, what a friend. Stronger than Superman, faster than the Flash, bigger than the Hulk. And Jesus, what a friend. Stronger than Superman, faster than the Flash, bigger than the Hulk. And Jesus, what a friend.
Can we give it up one more time for K-Kids and Taylor? Man, so cool. And if you're new to Kensington, we just wanted to just reemphasize, man, we value families, and we really value the life change that can happen when families just get in line with what God's called them to. And I could just totally relate just seeing these guys dance on stage. I grew up in church, and I grew up in a kids ministry similar to that, and I'm just so thankful for men and women who poured into my life so that I could do what I do today and pour that into my family, my kids. I've got a 1-year-old, I got a 4-year-old, and just when I see those kids dancing, that just gives me just this gratitude of what God has done in my life through those people. And this next song we're going to lead you guys in, it's called Glorious Day. And for me, I sing it from that place of just gratitude and thankfulness. Man, God, what have you done in my life? It's so incredible. And just those kids dancing was just such a great reminder of that. And whatever that is for you, if you're thankful for something, if God has done something in your life that you can just look to, maybe it was watching these kids dance up on stage or whatever it was, just encourage you. We're going to lead you guys in this song, and let's sing it from that place today. I was buried beneath my shame. Who could carry that kind of weight? It was my tomb till I met. I was breathing alive. All my failures I tried to hide. It was my turn till I met you. Sing it out, you called. You called my name, and I ran out of that rain. And your freedom is all that I know. Come on, let's declare this. The old made new. Jesus, when I met you, oh, when you called my name, come on, I ran out of that rain. Name. all you got, if you feel comfortable, let's sing this bridge together. I want to hear you sing. I needed rescue, my sin was heavy, but chains break at the weight of your glory. I needed shelter, I was an orphan, now you call me a citizen of heaven. When I was broken, you were my healing. Now your love is the air that I'm breathing. I have a future, my eyes are open, and when you call my name, come on, yeah, I ran out of the grave, out of the darkness, into your glorious day.
I love that song so much. Part of the reason that I feel like we can sing that out so passionately is that we are really united at our church around one idea, really above all else, and that's that every single one of us in this room is broken to some level, and we all have experienced that kind of brokenness in our lives. But here at our church, we just believe that because of Jesus and only Jesus, we have freedom from that. So, hey, thanks so much for singing with us. You can go ahead and have a seat. We're so glad that you're here. And again, if this is your first time, we just want to say welcome. My name is Patrick, and I'm the lead pastor here. And weren't those kids amazing? One more time for those kids. Wasn't that great? So good. How many of you, be honest, like you were like, I kind of want to dance along with them, but I'm scared I'm going to hurt myself. Anybody else? Like you were feeling that? I was sitting there like, no, I'm going to not. I'm going to not. But no, so great. That was just kind of a preview and a glimpse of really what goes on here at our church back there in K Kids. And they do that song amongst many others, and it's just such an amazing environment for them. So today what I want to do is I want to give you a quick preview of what we're going to talk about today. What we're going to do is we're really jumping into a brand new series called It's Just a Phase. And we're going to be talking about families, and we're talking about you operating within your family and what it looks like to have a healthy family over these next 3 weeks. So I'm so excited about that. But before we jump into the talk, I want to go ahead and invite our ushers to move forward. We're going to receive our offering today. And I wanted to say this to those of you who are part of Kensington and you give to what we do here. I just wanted to say thank you so much for being a part of that. You make a lot of things happen. But last night, I really got a really clear glimpse of what your giving actually does here in the community and what your volunteering does here in the community. Last night, I was a part of Safe Harbor. How many of you guys have signed up to be a part of Safe Harbor? Like you've been a part of that and you're playing on it? Yeah. Safe Harbor is like a local homeless shelter here in our community that we get to be a part of. And I'm hanging out with a couple of guys last night. And one of the guys I was hanging out with, his name is Mike. And Mike is an artist. And so we're sitting kind of in front of Mike. And what he does is he draws comic strips. And he's a part of that, which I thought was so cool. And so I actually took a couple pictures of it because I thought it was so amazing just what he was doing. I asked him to make sure he was okay with this. But I think we got a couple pictures. Let me show you this first one real quick. So he draws this, which I think is so cool. And he has all of these notebooks laid out on this table, and he's drawing a lot of this from pencil and just so proud of it. And I thought that was so cool. We're having this long conversation because I can't draw a stick man. It's embarrassing, but he was really, really excited about this. And then he found out I was a pastor, which, I try not to tell people, but I finally told him. And then he goes, oh, you'll love this drawing. And then he turned it to this one, which is my favorite. This is Mr. T and Jesus. And so I thought that was pretty amazing. And he's like, you'll love this. I thought that was so cool. And he has this amazing story. He's a guy in our community that works. He works as a local artist, and he does so many amazing things. And I got to thinking last night, we had a bunch of people there, which was so fun to see Heidi. Heidi was there last night. Alex was there. A bunch of people were there last night. And I got to thinking to myself, it's just such a powerful thing when we get to go into our community and we're a part of people's stories like his. And so Mike's story is an amazing one. Just the redemption that's been a part of it, and even the way that God's been working in his life over the last several years. But I was just so thankful that I got to be a part of that. And so all of you who signed up to be a part of Safe Harbor, I just want to say thank you so much. Really, what we do there is one of the most important things that we do. In some ways, sometimes even more important than showing up here. It's just an amazing thing that we get to do that. And so thank you for giving. Thank you for being a part of that. You make all of of those kinds of things possible in our community. And so I just wanted to say thanks so much. So we're going to jump into the series, It's Just a Phase, here in a second. We've got a little video that kind of gets your mind thinking in that direction before we jump into the talk. So I wanted you to kind of look at the screens, check out this video, and then we'll jump into the message.
Oh, look! She took her first step. Have a great day, sweetie. I hope she'll be okay.
Oh, she'll be fine. All right, hold still, honey. Here we go. Yeah, there it is. Okay, let's take a look. Oh, it's not too bad, just a scratch.
I think she needs stitches.
Stop.
I know. I'm so sorry, honey. Girls can be mean.
Be careful.
And remember, everyone out there is an idiot.
Ugh.
Oh, honey, you look so beautiful.
What's his name?
Seriously? Oh, look at you. My goodness.
Honey, we're really proud of you. Okay, you're gonna do great.
I'll FaceTime you around 4 every day.
We'll see about that. Are you okay?
Yeah, I'll be fine. It just went so fast.
I know.
Now, I got glimpses of that video over the last few weeks. I loved that video. And the reason that I love that video so much is because whether you're a parent in the room or you're not a parent in the room, or you have nephews and nieces, or you're single and you're like, please God, no kids right now, that whole deal, or you're a grandparent or an empty nester in the room, the one thing that we all know is true is that when it comes to our families, families are extraordinarily important in our lives. And the other thing is this, that every phase of our family looks a little bit different as we progress. Like none of those phases last forever. And I think what we're going to talk about over the next few weeks is how important it is that we pay attention to those phases, no matter where we are in the life stage or the phase of our families, and no matter what it looks like or where we kind of are on the married, single, empty nester, whatever background you are or wherever you are in life. When it comes to our families, we know that they're important, and we also know that those phases are temporary. So before we jump into some of the content, though, I would say this, that most of us are kind of inundated with lots of views of what families look like, right? We see this on TV all the time. We see this in movies, magazines. We get all of these pictures of what family looks like. So I need you to help me out real quick. Can you help me out? I need to take a big deep breath because you're going to need to shout out for just the next couple minutes, if that's all right. So take a big deep breath, get ready to shout out. I need you to help me real fast and give me a couple of lists of some famous families. Can you do that? So give me a couple of famous families. Let me hear you real quick. What's a couple of families? Addams family. We're leading off with the Addams family. I'm excited about that. You're going to really enjoy these talks. That's great. That's awesome. No, Addams family. That was the first one I thought of, too. That was great. What else? Who? Huxtables. Oh, the Huxtables. Yeah, that's good. Claire Huxtable. I think that's my wife's life goal. I think that's what that is. Claire Huxtable. That's not spelled right, but we'll pretend, right? What else? Brady Brunch. Yeah, brunch. That's a different thing. All right, Brady Bunch. All right, that's good. What else? Let me hear another. Cunninghams. Is that what you said? Cunningham? You said the Beavers? Cleavers. All right. Cunningham. The Beavers. That's great. Obamas. Yeah, that's good. Cleavers. These are coming in faster than I can spell, so you have to give me grace on that. What was the other one? The Partridge Family? That's good. All right, give me like two more. Give me two more. Hold on. Did we say Kardashians? Who said Kardashians? And who is like guilty pleasure and I'm proud of it? Anybody? We're going to end on the Kardashians. I think that wins. I don't even know how to spell that. Is that? All right, Kardashians, that's great. So that is a perfect segue into what we're going to talk about. So Kardashians, I think is hilarious. Right? We are inundated with all sorts of views of what family looks like. And then reality TV comes in with the Kardashians, which I think is amazing, right? You have a whole separate view of what it looks like. There are famous families that are just famous for being famous, right? It's an amazing thing. And then you get all of these different views of what this looks like, and we get all of these pictures of what family is. Now, here's what I want to talk about to get us thinking about this, is you got all these famous families that we see, all these famous families that we're inundated with, we watch on television, the whole deal, right? But there's something that unites all of these families, right, that we see, and there's a few things that unite every single one of us in the room as well. Now, here's what we're going to talk about. We'll look at this to get us going, right? Every single one of us, including these people, have a family of origin, right? We have a family of origin, which means this, that at some point or another, birth happened for you, right? Birth happened, and when it happened, you were a part of a family, right? You were a part of a family. No matter what that looked like for you, right? You were a part of some sort of family or someone who took care of you, right? Somebody came alongside of you. They may not have even been your parents, but they came alongside of you, and you were part of some sort of family. The second thing is this, is that you didn't choose the who, right? Now, in high school, you wish you could have chosen the who. Is that right? Like, you looked at your mom, you looked at your dad, like, I love you, but I kind of wish that they were my parents, right? There were moments where a lot of us felt that. You didn't get to choose your parents. You didn't get to choose your brother and sister. In fact, some of you were like, can we give him back? You know, like, is that possible? Right? I talked to somebody, they have a 7-year-old, and they had a new... They had a new baby, and seriously, the little boy's like, Mom, can we give him back? You know, I don't know that I want it, because you don't choose the who. You just don't choose that. And the third one is this, right? We all have positive and negative experiences in our family, right? We all have positive and negative experiences in our family. We all experience that. That there are moments in our family that we look back on and we're fond of. And even if you had the best family in the whole world, even if you're still daddy's girl and you still love your mama and you call her all the time, you know, whatever that looks like, you had great moments, and then you had moments that tend to stick with you. And they sort of create baggage in your heart and in your life. And for those of you who are parents in the room, right, you're doing the same thing with your kids. You've had these great moments, but you also had these sort of negative moments as well. And even those of you who are grandparents, the beautiful thing is you get to be a grandparent and you love them and you care for them, the whole deal, but then you get to give them back and you're excited about that too, right? But you're creating positive and negative moments in the lives of your family. Now, where are my dads at real quick? Do you have any dads in the room? Let me just see what we're talking about, right? So a lot of you know or have experienced some sort of moment like this, right? It's a very positive moment for you as a dad because you're scared, frightened, and you want to pray a whole lot more for the very first time all at once, right? You're holding a baby. It's a very positive moment for you. Those of you who are grandparents, right, you know this, that when you got to hold your grandkids for the first time and you saw them, right, it was a big deal. All of these moments that you have as a grandparent really matter. And then those of you with teenagers, specifically high school students, hopefully high school students, the moment that you started, driving or they started driving, right, you're sitting there in the car and they start driving, and again, you're just like, if there's a God up there, please save everyone, right? Like you're feeling those moments, right? And it's a big moment. For some of you, this experience was both positive and negative. You got in your biggest fight in the car and you were extraordinarily proud all at the same time. Now, I think one of the moments that is really capturing both of these, right, is the moment that when a family, I think, gets a dog, you know what I mean? Like it's an extraordinary positive experience because your kids are like, oh my gosh, and every dad's like, I'm going to have to walk it, you know? Like you feel that, and it's a very positive moment, but at the same time, you have angst around it. Now, what I know about you as a parent, if you're a parent in the room, what I know about you as an uncle, if you're an uncle in the room, and what I know about you if you are a grandparent, is that you mess up sometimes. And your parents messed up sometimes. And when they messed up, again, it stuck with you, and it mattered. Now, one of my all-time favorite movies that I've ever watched is a movie called Dan in Real Life, and this is one of my favorite scenes from the movie. If you haven't seen Dan in Real Life, you should go home and watch it today. I think it's like an amazing, amazing movie. Dan, who's Steve Carell, so don't think about The Office, think about Important Dad, right? He's in this movie. And he's got 3 girls. He's the daughter of 3 girls. And what he does over the course of the movie is his wife had passed away years and years before. He falls in love with this girl. And so his daughters felt all this tension around the way that he started acting and responding. So he said terrible things to his daughters. He was accidentally really cutting at them at times and really hurting them over and over and over again. And it was all based on some insecurity that he had. Now, the beautiful part about this scene is this is the end of the movie where he's sort of apologizing to his daughters and creating this moment where all the positive and negative experiences sort of collided, and then they forgive him. Now, I love this scene because it really, I think, captures what happens in most families. You have highs of positive moments, and you have extreme lows oftentimes, and then oftentimes you'll live sort of in the middle, but then you have these moments, right, of forgiveness that brings everybody back together. That you have a family of origin, and that matters, and you didn't get to choose the who, and you have positive and negative experiences in your family. Now, your family is not perfect, my family is not perfect, none of us have been a part of a perfect family. But I think when it comes to God and what the scriptures teach when it comes to our families is that we can be a part of a family that is healthy, and we can be a part of a family that is moving in a direction that we want to go. And if you're here and you're not a follower of Jesus and you're like, I'm skeptical of the Bible and I'm here because somebody promised to pay for my meal, whatever that is, that's totally cool. I love it. Or some of you would never say this out loud, but you bring your kids for character development, right, in our Kids program, and you show up and you tolerate me, which that's totally cool. I would do the same thing, right? Right? And if you're not a follower of Jesus, over the next few minutes, what I'm going to talk about is going to feel a little bit odd and strange. But what I want to do is, as we look at these principles, I want you to ask yourself, what if what was said thousands of years ago is actually true and applicable to our lives now? That what if these phases that we're going to talk about are actually applicable thousands of years later and can completely shape the way that you parent? Because right now you are in a phase, right? We could say it this way. The parenting is ultimately marked by these unique phases in the life of both the parent and the child. And then we could say this, that the way you show up in each of these phases plays a significant role in the health of your family. So what we're going to do today is we're going to look at one of my favorite passages in all of the Bible. And I say that a lot, but this is really I loved it. And I read this pretty consistently because the phrase that we're going to look at in this one verse in the Bible gets repeated consistently, and it actually gets repeated by Jesus in a very important way later on, and he adds to it. We'll talk about that. But what we're going to look at is really the foundation for an entire people group. All right, so there's a guy named Moses. Moses pretty famous because, the waters parted. He did the whole thing. But he was really a leader of this whole emerging nation that God had promised, this, land to. And he had promised that he'd be present in their lives and this whole thing in the Old Testament. In fact, the first 5 books of the Old Testament are really focused on their story and how they come about and what goes on, in their hearts and their lives. And so right here, and we're going to be looking at Deuteronomy chapter 6, Moses stands up to give this massive speech to all of these people to lay the foundation for what is to come. Now I want you to imagine this for just a second. Moses stands up to give this extraordinarily important speech. I always picture him as a really, really old guy with an amazing beard, much like Dave's right here, just a lot longer, right? That's how I think about it. This long, massive beard, wise, kind of old man, and all of these people sitting out there listening. Now I want you to imagine this for a second. If you think about this is an entire people group listening to Moses lay the foundation for what humanity could be like in the future. That a new way of thinking, a new way of life, a new way of approaching the entire thing. There's old people, there's young people, there's children around, there's all of these people listening to Moses teach. And I think about the pressure that he must have felt, because I want you to think about this. As he's saying these words, he's about to lay a new paradigm for the way that they're going to parent, for the way that their community is going to look, for how all of this is going to take place. So here's what he says, Deuteronomy chapter 6, verse 1. It says, "These are the commands, decrees, and laws the Lord your God directed me to teach you," that's going to be important in a second, "to teach you to observe in the land that you are crossing the Jordan to possess." Right? So this is the area of the world that God had promised them, that this nation or this people group would land. And Moses stands up and says this, there are guiding principles that will allow us to function in the way that God has called us to function. Right? And then he says this, ultimately, because of what's going on, you get to hear this from me because I've experienced this with God. And so as we look to the future, as we point to the direction that we're going, before we even get to the place where we will be settled, this is the guiding principles that will mark our lives and this new way for humanity. Watch what he says next. He says, "So that you, your children, and their children, 3 generations, so that you, your children, and their children after them may fear the Lord. Right? Now, not in a scared sort of horror movie sort of way, but getting to the point where they are submissive to God is what he's getting after. They may fear the Lord your God as long as you live by keeping all of his decrees and commands that I give you, and so that you may enjoy long life. Now, this is a part of the Bible a lot of people don't like to talk about, right? It almost feels in some ways like transactional. That if you do, then you can experience. But there is this consequence to the way that you're going to live. And if you want to experience the consequences that come in the positive way in living, and keep and hold fast to these commands. But not only that, but to experience the benefits that come with this life, teach your children and their children to obey them too, so that they can experience long life, which is this way of talking about the best life. Now, come on, look at me for just a second. It's so easy to gloss over, and it's so important. What he's saying is that the way that you teach, the way that you parent, the way that as a community you come alongside of each other, it matters more than you will ever know. And it doesn't begin with you passing it on. It begins in your heart. Because before you can lead anyone else, we have to first lead ourselves. So for those of you who are followers of Jesus, right, and someone poke at you for a second. For those of you who are followers of Jesus and you pray at night like, God, I really want this for my son or daughter. I really want you to protect them in this. I want you to do this. Those are all great prayers. But I also think when it comes to these passages and what Jesus even teaches later on, there's like the prayers are so extraordinarily important. But the way that you live is almost more important. That the way that you pass on your own faith to the next generation is so incredibly important because it shows your obedience or lack of obedience to God. Now, when he teaches this is the part that I really geek out on, is he teaches this principle of obedience and the consequences that come from it to a crowd that is extraordinarily diverse in age, and the focus is communal. Which means that there would have been children there who were probably orphans. There would have been children, kind of like in our culture, who come from single family sort of scenarios. There are grandparents who are extraordinarily old, parents, the whole deal. And what he's saying when he says this, that our approach to passing on this set of principles, our approach to passing on this way of living, and our approach to seeing God for who he is communal. That no one bears all that responsibility, don't miss this, on their own. Now, if God has given you children, no one will say this, it's your ultimate responsibility, right? For the spiritual direction of your kids. But I don't think God ever intended you to do it by yourself. Right? In fact, we can say it this way, that in this society, in what Moses is teaching, no one walked alone. That the expectation thousands of years ago to this ancient culture who was looking at a new way to approach humanity was saying this, that we're going to come alongside of one another to pass on faith to the next generation. We're going to come alongside each other to pass along these principles of obedience. We're going to come alongside of each other to ensure that it goes from this generation to the next generation to the next generation. All are connected, and all in some way are responsible. Now think about that in our culture today, right? And you think about new parents, right? They come home with their little baby for the first time, and every dad's scared that they're going to break it, that sort of thing. And you think about our culture today with single families. You think about our culture today with 2 parents in the home. You think of our culture today with adoptive families. You think of our culture today in foster families. I think I always find myself so fascinated by this idea. That no matter what your background is and no matter what your current situation is, the design of humanity thousands of years ago when this was created was that you never walked alone. That as a community, you come alongside of one another and you build one another up, see extraordinary things happen. And then Moses goes on and he says this. He says, "Hear Israel, And be careful to obey so that it may go well with you, and that you may increase greatly in a land flowing with milk and honey, just as the Lord, the God of your ancestors, promised you. That if you allow yourselves to be rooted in this principle of living, if you choose obedience and you teach obedience further on, then you will experience God's best. And then Moses goes on to say some of the most quoted and most powerful words in all of Scripture. He says this: "Hear, O Israel, the Lord our God, the Lord is one." That there aren't many gods, that there aren't many things to chase after. There is but one. And love the Lord your God with all of your heart and with all of your soul and with all of your strength. Some of you grew up in homes where this was plastered in the bathroom somewhere, Or you go to, Sunday school and you heard this verse all over the place. But when you think about these words, in the context by which Moses said it, to a group of diverse people, figuring out and learning how to become a nation and become a people group. Because you want to know what it's all about. Just love the Lord your God with all your heart and your soul and your strength. All of your hopes and dreams and your emotions and appetites. With all those intangible things that will live long after you're gone in your soul. And with a level of striving that isn't to be good enough, but is to reach for the grace that is only found in God. Love the Lord your God with all of that. And then he says this: "These commandments that I give you today are to be on your hearts." Now, I'll tell you, when I've read this passage, early on, this was a verse that I used to skip over because I'm not really like the touchy-feely, oh, that's so cute kind of person. Like you could have put a cat meme next to this and I wouldn't have felt anything. It's just not me. And I think about this passage, and when you look at the way that Moses talks about this, it's not like this, right? It's not let these principles just be connected to your heart. It's every appetite and emotion held tightly. It's every desire and hope for the future. It's the keeping your eyes focused and locked into what they should be. Never going to the right or to the left. Which means for those of us who are parents in the room, come on, look for a second. You'd have so much going on. I know you do. Moses is saying is that these principles and this posture of living is to be so on your hearts or so focused into what you're doing that you don't miss it as it comes. I wanted to read this to you because I wrote this down and I wanted to say it exactly right. I think when Moses says this, what he says is this: that you are to help your children know, to understand, and to be fully captivated by a God who commands their wonder. I want to say this one more time. That as a parent, as a grandparent, as a foster parent, as the crazy uncle that you are, right? You're to help these children know, understand, and be fully captivated by a God who commands their wonder. That's what this on your heart means. And some of you are here, ready? And you were a follower of Jesus at one point, and you were captivated by the wonder of God at one point. But if you were honest, now you're 35, you're 45, you're 65, and you're not captivated by that wonder anymore. Like you don't wake up and it's not like, oh, you don't feel that. And you're married and you love your spouse and all that's great, but you're not like captivated by their wonder anymore. In fact, I think in our culture, more times than not, and it's kind of blunt, but we're not captivated by anything that makes that wonder come alive in us. But yet what we experience day in and day out is these kids, right, who have this face. You ever seen this? It's when they look out and if but for a moment are so captivated by whatever it is that they see that it commands their attention. Now, in our family, the thing that captivates us the most is Target, right? This is my kid in Target. And that's a dad fail. We'll just talk about that, right? And I remember we're in the toy section, and he's looking at Star Wars score. And I remember thinking, I think that's the picture of what Moses hopes for this generation, right? And I think he talks about it, or we look at it in terms of children and kids, but that's not just where it is. He's talking to all three generations. I think Moses says that when we think about God, it should be richer as we're older, that it should be more deep as we get older. That if we want to inspire wonder in kids, then we have to hold this kind of wonder on our own. And I talk to adults all the time. I talk to people who say they're followers of Jesus all the time. I look at my own life all the time, and I'm thinking, I don't always feel this, but I think this is the goal. That when we walk throughout our lives and we experience the brokenness and the pain and the suffering, and we walk through our lives and we experience the high moments of joy and excitement, that we find the wonder in the spiritual moments over and over and over again. And what Moses says next is taking this idea and working to get it into the heart. And I love the word that he uses. He says this: impress them, being these principles and this awe of wonder, impress them on your children. It's almost this idea of like massaging this into the heart of a child so that you teach it diligently from that vulnerability. That you teach from a posture of having wonder in your own life, in your own heart. Here's what I tell those of you who are followers of Jesus. You ready? That if you don't have that kind of wonder, or you haven't experienced that kind of wonder in a long time, oftentimes we're looking for like a 3-step plan for that, that maybe he'll write it up on the light-up board, And there's not a great, clear answer to that, except for find it. That in the midst of your suffering and your questions, find it. In the midst of your marital struggle, you have to work and find it. And sometimes you fight for it. And sometimes it's 3 a.m. and you're looking for it. But you look and you work to find that wonder so that as a parent, as a grandparent, as an uncle, as a small group leader, that you can impress it on these children. And he goes on and he says this. He goes on, let's go to the next one. Sorry, let's go to the next slide. Sorry, and I messed you up. To impress them on your children, it says this: tie them as symbols on your hands and bind them on your foreheads and write them on the door frames of your houses and on your gates. Now I love this. It says, with this wonder, find a way to put it in front of you as a family and make sure that you are working to understand and keeping it in front of you over and over and over again. So, here's what I want to do to wrap up our time, and then we'll walk through this. I'm going to ask you to do a couple things real quick. I'm going to ask you to take out your cell phones if you have them with you. I'm going to ask you to take out your cell phones. And if you're a parent in the room, this is for you. If you're a grandparent in the room, this is for you. I want you to capture these principles. So you can take it out. What I'm going to ask you to do is you can either take a note, and I don't ask you to take notes a lot. You can take a note, or you can take a picture of the screen. I'll try to get out of the way so I'm not in it, but you can take a picture of the screen. There's 3 things that I want you to hold fast to, right? If you don't hear anything else I say today, there's 3 things I want you to hold fast to, and I'll tell you why as we go through it, right? There's going to be 3 screens, so 3 pictures. Hopefully it doesn't take up too much space on your phone. Here we go. First one is this. I want you to remember this, that every kid needs an adult, don't miss this, other than their parent speaking into their life. Snap that picture, write it down, whatever it takes. Get that on paper. And I'm going to tell you why. Even if you're not a follower of Jesus, I think this is a principle you need to apply. Every single parent or every kid needs an adult other than their parent speaking in their life. When I moved here, right, and almost at every church that I've been a part of, this is something I bang on the table with people. Like I'll get all angsty about it and all, excited and upset all at the same time. The reason is because your kid will one day be a kid who doesn't come for you for everything. And for some of you, that happened at 4 years old, right? And you're like, phew, and you're looking at your husband, he's yours, like that sort of thing, And what that is they're looking at you for guidance and help, and they're looking at you to meet their needs, but don't miss this. But there will be a day where your voice diminishes at some level, and they look to other adults to hear from you, right? 2 of my favorite people in the world, I hope I can say this. I'm going to go for it. Mark and Kay Mentley, they attend our church, and I love talking to parents all over the time. They are these people for so many kids, right? So many families. They're this other voice. And the reason it's so important is because even if they say the exact same thing you do at home, your kids listen to somebody else. And here's how I know that. You ready? Everybody look. Because you did that too, right? Your mom looked at you and said, you should not date that guy in the leather jacket and the motorcycle with 12 tattoos. And you're like, I love him, And then you heard like your mentor or somebody else say it to you. They said the exact same thing over lunch or coffee, and you're like, really? Just because they weren't your parents, right? Now, I'm going to tell you this, and we'll wrap up in a second. This is what we've built our entire ministry on. I get up all the time, and I talk about small group leaders. So many of you last week said you were interested in being a small group leader for K-Kids or students. The reason is because we're trying to provide another adult in the life of a child to speak into that child. So I'm going to tell you this. If you're not a parent, you're an empty nester, your kids are gone, you're single, score, whatever you are on that, let me tell you this. You get to be that person in someone else's life. I say this to guys all the time. We have all these single, parents, all these single families in our church. And I would say this to you. One of the biggest needs over and over again isn't even that you just serve here. It's not that. But that men step up in the life of boys and teenagers. All right? The most significant moments in my life are people who would come over and play catch. My first breakup, my small group leader showed up at my house to play catch. Right? Because he knew like puppy love was real to puppies. So we're out playing catch, and finally 30 minutes in I start talking about this girl that broke my heart or whatever, even though we never talked or went anywhere, right? All that happened, and we're having this conversation over football. Significant moment in my life, right? All right, number 2 is this. If you're a parent and you have a kid in our environments, because we do this or somewhere else where this is happening, take a picture of this, it's so important. You need to grow in your relationship with those who are speaking into your kid's life. Now, you do this a lot of times with teachers, right? You show up and you go to the parent-teacher thing because you want to know the teacher. You want to make sure they got a good teacher. You got all that going on, right? You do all those things. But when it comes to this, right, you need to grow in your relationship with them, which means if you drop off your kids week in and week out here and you never have a conversation with a small group leader, I would say like grab them, physically grab them and talk to them, get to know them, call them. They all want to do that with you, right? Get to know those people that are speaking into your kids' lives. It will be life-changing. And the last one is this, and it always feels odd, but I say this almost every message that I give, and that's this. You have to choose predetermined submission to God in your parenting, right? Now, this is one I want you to take a picture of right now, and that's because of this. That you will get emotional, you will get upset, you will feel unworthy as a parent. If you're someone who's not, directly a parent, but you're speaking to the lives of other people, right? There will be moments where you don't feel like you've got it all together, and you won't have it all together. But if you choose predetermined submission to God in your parenting or your mentoring, however that looks, right? You will be better positioned to make a significant impact on the lives of these kids, right? You will. But it causes you to say from the outset, God, here's my open hands. Take it. I'm choosing predetermined submission for you. So here's what I want to do to wrap up our time. I'm going to ask the band to go ahead and actually come on out if we can. I want to put up one more slide, and I'm going to ask you to do something that might feel a little bit odd, but we're going to wrap up after this. Sorry. So I got all passionate, and I went a little bit long. So here we go. Let me tell you this. Can we go back one more? Sorry, Anna. I'm messing you all up. I'm sorry. I want you to do this for a second. I want you to read this. I'm going to read this to you. Imagine a world where every child had another adult echoing the truths that they heard from their parents. I want to say this again. I want you to imagine a world where every child had another adult echoing the truths that they heard from their parents. Here's what I'm going to ask you to do just for a second. I'm going to ask you to actually imagine it. So I'm going to ask you just for a second to close your eyes, if you would. Can we just all close our eyes for a second? Humor me for just a minute. And what I want you to do around this idea is I want you to think for a moment to one or two of the most significant and impactful moments of your life, right? For some of you, that was in college. For some of you, it was a middle school moment or a high school moment where your identity was shaped. Some of you, you grew up in a broken home, or you grew up in a home that was struggling, right? Whatever that moment is, right? I want you to think about that for a second. And for those of you who are parents, with your eyes closed and kind of thinking about and imagining this, I want you to hear me say this. That your kids will go through something similar to that, even if you're the best parent in the whole world. Now, I want you just for a moment to imagine what would happen, especially in those broken moments, if there were another adult or another 2 adults or 3 adults or 5 adults that had come alongside of you and were right there with you during those moments. What would your life have looked like if you had had that? Now, look at me for just a second. I'm going to wrap up. I'll tell you one more thing, and I'm going to end it. Is that when it comes to the way that we do ministry, it's not that we just, and I love that we have kids dancing, it's not that we do that. It's not that we have just big production and all that. But the end goal for what we do is this principle, and it's based off of this. We say it this way, that two combined influences will make a greater impact than just two influences. Now look at me. Two combined influences, the local church and the home. People who come alongside of kids and middle school students and high school students, college students, right? And then the people who are with them in their lives, 3,000 other hours of the year, whatever that is, When those two converge on each other, when mentors come alongside parents, when other people show up into the heart and the lives of kids, when people who are older than 60, 65, 70, 80 years old, right, come alongside boys or girls and help shape their identity, that is when something significant happens. At our church, our promise to you is this, that you will never be alone in your parenting unless you choose to be. That we'll have volunteers and we'll have those people here for you. But I'm going to tell you this, when we get this right, the local church ends up making the most significant impact in the community because it mobilizes people to do what God had planned all along. And that's to pass on faith, an irresistible faith to the next generation. Through people who open-handedly choose predetermined submission and say, I'm going to come alongside you and influence you in a powerful way. And so my call for a lot of you is this, that if you're not a parent, you don't have to do it here. You can do it somewhere else, wherever it is. But find one or two kids or middle school students or high school students to invest your life in. I'm sitting here, I'm looking at Reese. We do a thing called Kids Hope. He shows up. He's an entrepreneurial, got a whole business on his own, still shows up once a week in the lives of a kid. Right? That kind of thing is what I'm challenging you to do. And for those of you who are parents, I'm going to challenge you to. I want to challenge you to embrace this. But I want you to embrace this with a heart that says, I want to capture that wonder and then partner with other people who can pass that on in the hearts and lives of our kids. That's our hope. So here's what I'm going to ask you to do. I want you to stand up. I'm going to pray for you. And then we're going to sing a song to end our time together. And I want to explain the reason that we're doing this song before we do it. I believe with all my heart, right, so passionately, that if we got this right, there's 7,000 students total, like Grand Traverse County, just middle school and high school, that sort of thing. If we got this one thing right, and this is the only thing that we got right, then I think we could actually change a city and the future of a city if we figure this out. And my hope for our church, right, because every church has their own thing and every church is, good at certain things and other things. My hope for our church is that people who are so far away from God, if they woke up this morning, church never even crossed their mind, right? But that their kids flood this place. They flood this place because they love it. My favorite quote so far this morning was certainly not mine. It was from a fourth grader back there who was dancing on stage. I love this. And here's what he said. He goes, I'm excited about dancing, but can you pause the cake? Can you pause the service back there until we get there because I don't want to miss it? And I was like, Taylor, you just got a raise. That's great. Taylor's listening. Really? Yeah. That's my hope. As if every single one of my messages bombs from here on and speakers fall out of the sky, we don't have these things. That there is a adult other than a parent in the life of every single child in Traverse City. And that there's that partnership between all of them. And as a parent, you're submitted to it. As a volunteer, you're committed to it. That's when we see life change happen so that we can capture the wonder that is faith and pass it on. And so the next song that we're going to sing, I was so excited about because, as I said earlier, some of you are here and you're an adult and you don't have that wonder at all. Like when we talk about capturing wonder, you don't have that at all at this point in your life. And the song is called So Will I. And all it talks about is this wonder. And so for these next few minutes, I'm going to say this. Is you got to apply these principles that we talked about. You've got to, as a parent, I think you really got to embrace this stuff. But for some of you, you need to pause for the next just 3 or 4 minutes as we sing this. and ask God to allow you to find that wonder again. Because you can't ever impress it on the heart of somebody else until you find it for yourself. Some of you just need to listen to these words, right? And you just need to let that kind of soak in. Others of you, for the first time, you never do this. Now, I don't say this a lot, but you would never do this. You see people raise their hands, which is like this act of submission, right? Some of you need to do that. And the reason you need to do that is because it's going to pull you out of your comfort zone, and it's almost like you're crying out to God, God, show up and let me discover that wonder again for the first time. Some of you, I've asked you to stand, but you need to sit and just sit in it. And Ben's going to lead us in this song, and you just need to feel the weight of the moment. And some of you, my prayer for you this morning is that you re-find and capture that wonder. Let me pray for us. Father, thank you for these truths, and God, thank you for a truth that was really captured thousands of years ago. When it was laid out for us what it looks like to be a communal family. Father, I ask that we really would become the kind of church that is just full of people passionate about passing on faith to the next generation. And maybe even broader than that, we're passionate about coming alongside of them and just being a part of their lives. And God, I ask that you would help us not only to transfer principles, not only to transfer obedience, but we would transfer that intangible look in a child's eye when they are captivated by something that has their wonder. And God, I pray for every one of us in the room, including myself, who walk through our lives fairly consistently, and we're not captured by it on our own. And I ask that you would help us, God, that you would help us to fight, to hold on to that wonder. And that you would open our eyes to the things that you do all around us, in the great moments and in the difficult moments. But we would find you in all of it. Find you in that which is spiritual and that is connected to our deepest humanity. And we would lean into it. Over the next few moments, I pray that that would be a catalyst for so many of us. And we walk out of here with a mission to impress on the hearts and the lives of every child. It's in Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
God of creation, there at the start, before the beginning of time. With no point of reference, you spoke to the dark, fleshed out the wonder of light. And as you speak, 100 billion galaxies are born. In the vapor of your breath, the planets form. If the stars were made to worship, so will I. I can see your heart in everything you've made. Every burning star, signal fire of grace. If creation sings your praises, so will I. God of your promise, you don't speak in vain, no syllable empty or void. For once you have spoken, all nature and science follow the sound of your voice. And as you speak, 100 billion creatures catch your breath. evolving in pursuit of what you said. If it all reveals your nature, so will I can see your heart in everything you say. Every painted sky, a canvas of your grace. If creation still obeys you, so will I. So will I. So will I. If the stars were made to worship, so will I. If the mountains bow in reverence, so will I. If the oceans roar your greatness, so will I. For if everything exists to lift you high, so will I. If the wind goes where you send it, so will I. If the rocks cry out in silence, so will I. If the sum of all our praises still falls short, then we'll sing again 100 billion times. God of salvation, you chase down my heart through all of my failure and pride. On a hill you created, the light of the world, abandoned in darkness to die. And as you speak, 100 billion failures disappear. Where you lost your life so I could find it here. If you left the grave behind you, so will I. I can see your heart in everything you've done. Every part designed in a work of art called love. If you gladly chose surrender, so will I can see your heart 8 billion different ways. Every precious one, a child you died to save. If you gave your life to love them, so will I. Like you would again 100 billion times. But what measure could amount to your desire? You're the one who never leaves the one behind.
So here's my challenge for you this week, right? Some of you, as soon as I said that thing about the wonder, and you're like, that's me, you know, oh my goodness. You know, you've been trying so hard with kids and the whole deal. I'm going to challenge you this week to do really one thing, that's this, that every single day, whether it be 3 minutes or 5 minutes or 10 minutes, whatever that is for you, I'm going to ask you just to pray that prayer in a version of it. God, help me to find that wonder again. That's for some of you. And then for others of you, you're in the room and you're like, you know what? We've been trying to do parenting on our own for a long time. you, you're new parents. Some of you have teenagers and you're in a new phase. You're like, we just don't have the answers, and that's okay. So what I'm going to ask you to do is to find other people to come alongside of you that you can partner with. Again, we believe that we have a lot of people here that would love to do that with you. All of our environments are set up that way for you, but I would just say this: find someone to come alongside of you and do that. And the other thing I want to let you know about too is I think we have a slide for it today. And throughout this series, there's a kind of mini bookstore in the lobby, so it's right out there, right out in the lobby. And most of what we talked about today is really kind of found in these 3 books. So I love to read parenting books. I've been reading parenting books for a long time. These are 3 of my favorites, and so you can get all of those out there today. They're the same price that we bought them for, so we're not making anything off of it. We just wanted to get them here so when you walk out, you can grab them. The 3 books are Parenting Beyond Your Capacity. Reggie Joyner, who's really the architect by a lot of what we talked about today, and Carrie Newhoff. Don't Miss It is really kind of getting after what this series is. And then the last one is one of my favorites. It's called For Parents Only. She also has one for spouses and relationships as well. But that's one of the most practical resources if you have middle schoolers or high schoolers. That's such great content in there for you in there. And the last thing I want to let you know about is this. Today, a lot of you signed up to be a volunteer and to get more information about that. And so we're going to put this slide up here. We're going to leave it here for you, but this is where all of those meetings are today. So a lot of you are leaving here to go directly to one of those meetings. We're so excited that you're thinking about joining us, but you can find where you're going here. So if you're guest services, production, or arts, that's Daryl, and he's right there too. You don't go see Daryl, even though he's right there at it, but you got kids and students, and then if you're undecided, we'll meet you there and talk about that as well. But all those places are right there in the building. We'd love to connect with you there. Hey, thanks so much for being here. We're continuing a series next week, and we'll see you right back here next Sunday for part 2. Thank you so much for watching online. Whether you know it or not, you're a part of a growing community here at our church online. And so we're just so thankful that you've decided to be a part of that. If you want to go deeper, all those resources that I mentioned just a few minutes ago are all on Amazon. You can get the ebook download for those, and they're incredible resources that will help you kind of take this content and go a couple of steps further as well. The other thing that we talked about today was what it looks like to partner with other people outside of your parents or outside of your current family structure, however that looks like. And we really believe that the local church is one of the best places to do that. And so if you're in the Metro Detroit area, if you're here in Traverse City, or even in Orlando, we have a church that would love to partner with you. And if you're not, there's probably a church in your city where you can find people who will come alongside you there. In fact, you can actually go to a website. It's called rethink.org. You can go to rethink.org. There's a whole list of churches on that site that really partner with this idea and these strategies that we've been talking about today. You can go in there, click one of those places, and all those churches are built on helping you be able to connect with another adult other than you to speak in the lives of your kids. Again, thanks so much for watching. We'll be right back here next week for part 2. We're going to take it a little bit further as we talk about conflict and how you manage that in your family. Thanks so much. We'll see you soon. Hey everybody, and welcome to Kensington Online. My name is Patrick, and we are so glad that you decided to join us today. And if it's your first time, we just want to let you know that today we're kicking off a brand new series called It's Just a Phase. And over the next 3 weeks, what we're going to be doing is we're going to be looking at your family and how you can exist within your family in the way that you were designed to do that. Now, over the next couple of weeks, we're also going to be posting some of this content on our social media, which is Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. We would love for you to follow us there if you're not currently doing so. The other thing I want to tell you, too, is today we're kicking off the service with a throwback to the 90s. So for all of you 90s kids out there, just like me, what's up, dude? You're good. You're good, man. We've got an opener just for you, and it's going to be incredible. You're going to love it. It's a throwback to TGIF. All right, well, I think we're about to get started. Thanks so much for watching. We'll see you soon.
It's a rare condition this day and age to read any good news on the newspaper page. Love and tradition of the grand design. Some people say it's even harder to find. Well, then there must be some magic inside these gentle walls. 'Cause all I see is a tower of dreams. Real love bursting out of every sea. Days go by, it's the bigger love of the family.
Is the capital? Think about it.
Since today that all you see is violence and movies and sex on TV.
But where are those good old-fashioned values on which we used to rely? Lucky there's a family guy. Lucky there's a man who positively can do all the things that make us laugh and cry. He's a family guy.
Going to bring
Whatever happened to predictability? The milkman, the paperboy, evening TV. You miss your old familiar friends waiting just around the bend. Everywhere you look, everywhere you go, a hand to hold on to. Everywhere you look, there's a face of somebody who needs you. There and you're all alone. A light is waiting to carry you home. Everywhere you look, everywhere you look. Shoo-ba-doo-ba-ba-da.
All right, you guys know this next one. Come on.
because she's here.
Here we go. The story all about how my life got flipped, turned upside down, and I'd like to take a minute, just sit right there, and tell you how I became a prince of a town called Bel Air. All right, come on, you guys know this. Let's sing it together. Here we go. In West Philadelphia, born and raised, on the playground is where I spent most of my days. Chilling out, maxing, relaxing, all cool, now shooting some b-ball outside of school with a couple of guys who were up to no good. Started making trouble in my neighborhood. I got in one little fight and my mom got scared. She said, "You're moving with your auntie and uncle to Bel Air." A whistle for a cab, and when it came near, the license plate said "Fresh" with a dice in the mirror. If anything, I could say that this cab was rare, but I thought, nah, forget it. Yo, home's to Bel Air. I pulled up to a house about 7 or 8, and I yelled to the cabbie, "Yo, home, smell you later." Looked at my kingdom, I was finally there, sitting in my throne as the Prince of Bel Air. Hey.
That is a fun way to start off the morning. Yes, you're in the right place. Yes, this is church. We're allowed to have fun. Did you guys remember some of those theme songs from those TV shows from the 80s and 90s? It's amazing how quickly the memories come back. Hey, welcome to Kensington. Thank you for being here. Good morning. My name is Mike Staff. And hey, if this is your first time ever joining us here at Kensington, thank you for checking us out. Our mission statement here is to see everyone transformed and mobilized by Jesus. And that means something different for everyone. And it will mean something different to you too. And we just thank you for coming and wrestling with that question to see what it might look like. We want to know how we can serve you better. So we actually put together a website. It's really kind of a landing page with a form on it. And you can find it on your phone or online at startingpoint.today. And if you could share with us a little bit about you and what your expectations of a church would be and how we could serve you, that would be fantastic, and we'd appreciate it. So you guys picked an amazing weekend to be here. We are beginning a brand new series today, and it's called It's Just a Phase. And Patrick Holden, our lead pastor, has got a phenomenal message today about family. We're going to have some more music, and we're going to be here for about 70 minutes together today. So I have just a couple of quick announcements for you. This first one is in your program just for reference. Coming up a week from Wednesday. Not this Wednesday, because what is this Wednesday? Valentine's Day. Guys, remember that. So this Wednesday, you're going to be with your honeys. And then next Wednesday, we want to invite you to be here on February 21st at 7 o'clock. We have what we call Render. And what it is our monthly midweek worship service. And it's not in this room. It's actually in a room across the hall. So it's a lot more intimate. And this is a great evening to make a big church feel much, much smaller with a lot of great worship, a shorter message from Patrick, and then some built-in time to get to know each other. So you don't have to sign up to show up. That's next Wednesday at 7 o'clock. All right, this next announcement, you guys, is going to make you happy. Whether or not you care what I'm talking about, it's going to make you happy. Why? Because we're going to talk about summertime. Specifically, let's watch a video about what summertime at Spring Hill camps look like. Let's watch this together.
Spring Hill Day Camps is chock full of fun and kids. We set up camp at different churches.
We run camp from 9 a.m. to 4 p.m., and there is not a second that kids aren't engaged.
A typical day in the life of a Spring Hill kid is crazy, hectic, exciting, energetic.
A typical day starts off with a dance party.
We get to every morning go to large group, and there's always music when we come in.
And then we go to small group where we learn more about who God is through different Bible stories.
I love that the kids can come and have people in their lives that are excited about Jesus Christ, and they can associate a ton of fun with the name of Jesus.
My favorite part of day camp is doing all the different activities. The funny thing is, not Rockwell has a easy side. Not easy side is not very easy.
Each activity hopefully is challenging to the kids and something new, or we put a spin on it where they're experiencing it in a new way.
All my counselors are really, really nice. They've taught me about Jesus and God.
We stick to the gospel essentials. We want to have a clear message that they know that Jesus Christ is the reason that we're here, that the gospel is the good news, and that it can change their lives.
This is what the church is supposed to look like, I think. You know, being in fellowship with other believers, eating together, sharing meals, being in prayer.
It's very fun, and you learn about God, and you can tell other people about Him.
I would say to another parent that it is a must. It is something that you really want to try, and you would find out why it's so wonderful.
You should bring your kids to Spring Hill because it's awesome.
It is awesome. There's no question about it. Hey, guys, I want to introduce you to Taylor. This is Taylor Leal. How about a round of applause? Taylor is the director of our K-Kids ministry here at Kensington. And Taylor, Spring Hill really is remarkable, isn't it?
It is. It's awesome. And I cannot believe we're already talking about summer. It's
so good.
Insane. But yes, Spring Hill Day Camps is one of our favorite things that we do in Kid World here at Kensington. And so June 18th through 22nd is when camps are going to happen. And I know you guys live in Traverse City. You value your summers. I know I do. And so we like to get these things on the calendar right away. So I guess that's why we're doing it, right?
That is.
Yeah. And then we have an early bird special. So if you guys sign your kids up this Wednesday, it is $189, and then it starts hopping up to $199 and $219, and they're doing this thing where you just have to sign up fast this year. So that's what we wanted to tell you guys. It's kindergarten through 5th grade. It's Monday through Friday, and it's from 9 to 4, and it is a really awesome experience if you have elementary school students. And if you don't, or maybe you do and you want to help out, there's a lot of ways that you guys can volunteer for us during Spring Hill Day Camp Week. One of those is our CITs. So we call these camp counselors in training. If you know of or have a middle school or high school student, they can train to be a counselor with these Spring Hill staff members. And then also we have to host the Spring Hill staff. So they stay here all week long in Traverse City. They travel all over, but when they're here with us, they need somewhere to stay. So we ask our attendees to host them. So maybe host 2 to 3 to 4, however many you can fit in your house, staff from Spring Hill. And then the last thing is lunches. We also provide lunches for the Spring Hill staff all week long. And so if you have the gift of making lunch, then,
for many.
I think there's about 20 to 25 of them. So that's who we would be making lunches for there too. So if you could do that, that would be awesome. We have a bunch of sign-up sheets in the lobby. If you sign up today to serve in one of these ways, we'll give you a popsicle. So we're already thinking about summer.
See, now that is a summer thing, right? Popsicles on a snowy day.
Yeah.
So awesome. Well, thank you, Taylor. Yeah. And you guys look for the big sign out in the lobby. It says Spring Hill.
And your kids will be getting this. So all the registration information is on there. Your kids will be going home with this today if they're in K-Kids in our elementary hallway. So
now, and Taylor, we have a very special treat from the K-Kids
I'm so
team.
Excited.
They are going to come out and do a song and a dance for us in
They've
just a minute.
They've been working so hard. Yes, this is actually our K-Kids worship team. They've been practicing and doing this song called Jesus, What a Friend, and they are really excited to come out.
So we are looking forward to it.
Yes.
Before we do that, you guys, I am going to invite you to please stand up and turn to someone around you, stretch a little bit, but let them know, tell them what your favorite TV sitcom of all time is. Okay? Mine is Friends.
Hey everybody, this is Patrick, and I just wanted to say thanks again for watching our service today online and being a part of this community. Now we know that you might have some questions as you watch the service today and want to find out a little bit more information about who we are. And so we've created an environment for you to do just that. Simply go to startingpoint.today. That's startingpoint.today and fill out that short form, and one of our staff members will reach out to you very shortly and answer any questions that you have about our church and about who we are. Again, thanks so much for watching. We'll be back at the end of the service today to give you a little bit more information, but we'll see you here in just a few minutes.
Superman, faster than the Flash, bigger than the Hulk man. Jesus was a friend, stronger than Superman, faster than the Flash, bigger than the Hulk man. Jesus was a friend, stronger than Superman, faster than the Flash, bigger than the Hulk man. Jesus was a friend, stronger than Superman, faster than the Flash, bigger than the Hulk man. Jesus was a friend.
Can we give it one more time up for those K-Kids worship team dancers? Man, so cool. Just when I see that, it just gives me so much joy. I remember personally when I was a kid their age, I was in a church similar to Kensington and doing similar stuff. And for me personally, man, it just gives me so much joy just seeing that. I hope that does to you in some small way. We're going to lead you guys in a song called Glorious Day. And one of the reasons why we picked that song to lead you guys in today, because for me personally, kids ministry was something that really was a launching point for me in my faith, man. Without God, without environments like that, I wouldn't be leading worship for you guys today. I wouldn't be a Christian probably. And if it wasn't for people who invested in my life. And that's for me something I can celebrate in my brokenness, in my hurts and my failures. Even though I struggle and I have stuff that I deal with every day, there are people like Taylor, there were people that deposited something beautiful in my life that said, hey, you're worth something even though you struggle with this. Hey, you're valuable even though you feel broken in this time. And so wherever you're at, maybe this is your first time, maybe you're still scoping out the whole Jesus thing, the whole church thing. My encouragement to you is just to listen to the words, because really the words of this song is my testimony. And for a lot of us in this room, some of us in this room, it might be a similar testimony as well. So we're going to lead this today, and I hope it blesses you. Let's sing it together. I was buried beneath my shame. Who could carry that kind of weight? It was my tomb till I met you. I was breathing but not alive. All my failures I tried to hide. It was my tomb till I met you. All right, let's sing this out. You called my name, come on, and I ran out of that grave. Out of the darkness into your glorious day. You called my name, and I ran out of that grave. Out of the darkness This next part, if you feel comfortable, I'll just encourage you. It doesn't have to be pretty. Just belt it out. If this is your story, let's sing. I needed rescue. My sin was heavy, but chains break at the weight of your glory. I needed shelter. I was an orphan. Now you call me citizen of heaven. Come on! When I was broken, you were my healing. Now your love is the air that I'm breathing. I have a future. My eyes are open. And when you call my name, the love ran out of that grave. Out of the darkness into your glorious day. You called my name, and I ran out of that grave. Out of the darkness into your glorious day.
All right. Hey, thank you so much for singing with us. You can go ahead and have a seat, and welcome to Kensington. My name is Patrick, and if it's your first time, you're like, wow, they're really excited about that. We are. Like, we get really excited about singing that song in particular because it really outlines what we believe about God and really what we believe about us, and that's the unifying factor for everybody in this room is that we don't have it all together. We're all broken people, and so we're trying to figure some of that out. So we're so glad that you are here today. Today we're kicking off a brand new series called It's Just a Phase, and what we're going to be doing over the next 3 weeks is talking about family and talking about how you can like interact in your family in a healthy way. And for those of you who are like, I love my family, there's a lot for you to get out of this. For those of you who like, I don't really talk so much to my family anymore, we got stuff for you as well. And then for those of you who are single and you're like, thank God I don't have kids, I'm going to talk specifically to you. So we're going to have fun over these next few minutes together. Before we jump into the talk, though, I want to go ahead and invite our ushers to move forward. We're going to receive our offering, and I just want to say thank you so much to all of you who are all in with us and that you give consistently here. There's a couple ways that you can give. We talk about that week in and week out. You can give on our app or our website or through text. That's really the easiest way to give. That's how our family does it. But you can also give in these amazing blue velvet pouch-looking things that I still haven't figured out what to call. But you can do that as well. Now, one thing I want to do today is I want to tell you a little bit about where your money goes. And when you volunteer or you give here, oftentimes we think it just stays kind of here in the building. But a significant portion to what you give actually goes out locally and then all over the world. And so you've heard us talk about Safe Harbor over the last several weeks. And so many of you have volunteered. Real quick, how many of you have volunteered or are planning on volunteering at Safe Harbor? Real quick, so I can see your hands. Wow, that's amazing. So we did it last night. My wife and I, we went to Safe Harbor last night, and it was such an amazing, amazing evening. I actually got to specifically talk to two guys. A guy named Mike was the one that I want to tell you a little bit about his story. Mike is a guy who is homeless here in our community, and if you're not familiar with Safe Harbor, it's a homeless shelter here in Traverse City. And so we're eating hot dogs, which were amazing, by the way. I had one or four too many, and but we're eating hot dogs, and he's an artist, and so at our table he has all of these like books of drawings that he has out, and what he does is he draws comics. And so I asked him if I could take a picture and show you. So here's one of the pictures that he drew, which I think is so cool. And so he draws these artistic elements. He works here in an art kind of area of town. And so we're talking, and I know this sounds odd. I don't tell people I'm a pastor because everybody stops cussing and smoking around me as soon as I do it. So I try to hold back on that. But eventually it kind of came out. He's like, what do you do? And I told him, I was a pastor. And he goes, oh, gosh, I've got a drawing that you'll love. Let me show you this. And he shows me this. And this is Mr. T and Jesus. And so I was like, those two go together real well. And I love that. In fact, that's a portion of the Trinity. It's great. So anyway, so we had fun. But we were talking last night, and I love this, is his story is an amazing story where he's a guy who had struggled at certain points and kind of come out of that, and just God's really been redeeming a significant part of his life. And so what I wanted to tell you is, I just want to say thank you so much for giving. When you give, again, you are making those kinds of things happen in our community, and we're not just about a church building or a guy with, I say this all the time, a guy with like a Britney Spears microphone on who gets up and talks for a few minutes, or the great music, that sort of thing. What we're about is transformation and redemption of this city, right? I see your shirt right there. It says Together for Traverse City. That's what we're about, right? We want to be a community that is for this community. And I just want to say to you, for those of you who give, I just want to say thanks so much. You're making those kinds of stories happen, which is extraordinary. And then beyond that, when you give and when you volunteer, you're impacting lives really here and then all over the world. So thanks so much for being all in with us. Okay, so I told you today we're starting a series. It's just a phase. And to get us thinking along those lines and in that direction, we have a video for you just to kind of get you thinking about the phases of what family looks like, and specifically the phases of what parenting looks like. So let's check out this video together.
Oh, look. She took her first step. Have a great day, sweetie. I hope she'll be okay.
Oh, she'll be fine. All right, hold still, honey. Here we go. Yeah, there it is. Okay, let's take a look. Oh, it's not too bad, just a scratch.
I think she needs stitches.
Stop.
I know. I'm so sorry, honey. Girls can be mean.
Be careful.
And remember, everyone out there is an idiot.
Ugh.
Oh, honey, you look so beautiful.
What's his name?
Seriously? Oh, look at you. My goodness.
Honey, we're really proud of you. Okay, you're gonna do great.
I'll FaceTime you around 4 every day.
We'll see about that. Are you okay?
Yeah, I'll be fine. It just went so fast.
I know.
Now, I've been looking at that video on and off for the last couple of weeks, and I love that video. And the reason that I love that video so much is if you're a parent in the room, right, then you know what it's like to watch your son or daughter grow up in different phases of life and look at them and go, that went so fast, right? And if you're a grandparent in the room, you look at your kids' lives and you're like, man, there were moments that went really, really slow, right? Around 2 years old, that went real slow, right? And then there are moments in middle school that you're like, this is never ending, right? Some of that happened. And then you kind of moved on, and it's like all of a sudden, you blink, and it's just gone. And then some of you, you're not married, or you don't have kids, and maybe you're single in the room, and you have nephews though, or you have kids that are around you, like in your sphere of influence, and you watch them, and even when you're watching them, like you love them and you care about them, and you see amazing things happening. But as you watch, again, all those things seem like they go so fast. The years just kind of blow by you, right? I was hanging out the other day, Emily and I, we were talking to a couple of like 22-year-olds, and we just think of ourselves as if we're still 22, and we're like, wow, that was a long time ago, you know what I mean? Like, and a few pounds ago, it was great. And so for me, not her, it was like that. And so I'm thinking to myself, like, that's kind of a thing. Like, it goes so fast, right? And when you think about it's just a phase, you think about the moments when you get frustrated, you think about the moments when you get anxious, you think about the moments where you're like, oh my goodness, like all of those kinds of things. But when you zoom out from all of it, you realize how quick parenting actually feels like it goes by, and how fast you become like a friend later on in life. And then you think back to your family, right? And you think back to your upbringing, and for some of you, it felt like it went really slow. For some of you, you felt like it went really fast. And you look back at all these moments, and you remember how all of that, right, your childhood becomes like one season of life that you look back on. And it's so significant, and it matters so much, and you lean into it, but at the same time, it all is very temporary. And when we think back to the families that we're a part of, and the families that we grew up in, or the foster families that we had, or the adoptive parents that we have, or the grandparents that we lived with, you think about all of those kinds of things, and you begin to realize how important that season of life is, and how fragile that season of life is. how important family is in our lives. And so before we jump into all the content, I want to look at an idea just for a couple of minutes, and that's this, that you are inundated over and over and over again with pictures of what families look like or what pictures of families should look like. And so here's what I want to do just for a minute. If you'll go ahead and take a big deep breath for me. Can we take a deep breath? We're going to shout out for just a minute, and the 11 o'clock crowd is the loud crowd. Is that right? Are you guys a little bit rowdy? No. Okay, great. That's fantastic. All right, perfect. So we'll do this together. Deep breath. All right, I want you to shout out famous families, right? Any famous families that you can think of, just go ahead and shout it out. Let me hear you. So we're going to lead with the Simpsons. That's great. That's great. We're going to lead with the Simpsons. I'm with you. I love that we played Family Guy earlier. We won't talk about that. But anyway, all right, that's great. What was the other one? The Tanners? Yeah, like from Full House? Is that? Yeah, the Tanners. How many of you had a crush on, what's her name? Candace Cameron something. Anybody? Just me. Okay, great. Perfect. The Tanners. All right, somebody else. What else we got? Who? The Kennedys, right? The Kennedys are a big one. Yeah, absolutely. The Kennedys. I'm going to see if I can spell that correctly. Ish. Yeah, there we go. Cool. What else? Who else? The Waltons. Yeah, that's the one where like John Boy said goodnight every night, right? Don't they all say goodnight? Yeah, I watched that I love that show. That was great. It's on Hallmark now, right? You know Hallmark? That's one of the shows I watched on. No, I'm going to stop talking. All right, sorry. Cool. What else? Brady. Who? Brady. The Brady Bunch. Yeah. I think you boasted that. That was great. Brady Bunch, right? The Brady Bunch are a big one. That's good. Let's do a couple more. Let me hear maybe two more. The Trumps. The Trumps. So we're going to put that here with the Obamas and Ralph Nader. Okay, there we go. We'll get them all. Okay. That's great. I love it. Just Ralph Nader, not his family. That's great. What else? Who else we got? The Jetsons. That's my favorite answer of the day so far. That's really good. I'm also going to put the Flintstones. Yeah, man, absolutely. All right, one more. Let me get one more. The Kardashians. Hey, come here. That's my favorite. That's awesome. Yeah, let's give it up for the No, let's don't. Okay, cool. Kardashians. Yeah, and that's going to be the one we end on. Kardashian. Close. Okay, cool. Yeah. So that's perfect, right? So let's talk about this for a second, right? Now, this is actually a perfect answer to what I'm talking about, right? It's a famous family on TV that is famous for being famous, right? Which is amazing. And you get all of these pictures of what family life looks like. And here's what I want to tell you is your family, right, whether you mean to or not, hope for it to be or not, whatever, right, even though your family looks different than these families, there are three things that unite every single family, even all of these on our little light up wild board kind of thing, right? And there's three things around that I want to look at. The first one is this, that every single one of us, every person has a family of origin, right? Which simply means this, you were birthed and you are now in a place where people care about you and take care of you, right? Or they at least take care of you, right? There's something happened for you that you have a family of origin. At some point or another, you came about, you came to be. And the second thing, which I love, is this, that you didn't get to choose the who, right? Now, somewhere around late middle school, early high school, you wish you could have chosen the who, right? You looked at your parents and was like, I love you enough to release you from parenting me. You know, like you felt those kinds of things. You didn't choose the who, but it was kind of happening there, right? The people who loved you and took care of you, or the people who were there after you were a baby and, you know, became around you, you didn't get to choose those people. They were just kind of there. And then the third thing that I think is true of all of us is this, that we all have positive and negative experiences in our family, right? And you don't necessarily get to choose all of these either, right? Some of you had extraordinarily positive experiences that were really meaningful to you, and then partnered with that almost sometimes at the same time, you had negative experiences in your family. So real quick, where are all the dads at in the room? Do we have, just real quick so I can see all the dads? That's great. Let's talk for a second. You remember this moment, right? And this is an example of this, right? When you held your kid for the first time, or, you know, you're holding a baby. And this is a beautiful moment, and I love this. Two things happen in this moment for every dad, right? The first thing is, oh crap. And the second thing is, what am I going to do now? You know? It's this beautiful kind of concoction of, you know, how am I going to do this? And, oh my goodness, this one's mine, you know? It's this positive and in some ways kind of frightening and, could be a negative moment. For those of you in the room who are grandparents, and I love this one, right? When you hold your grandparent or your grandkids for the first time, I love talking to grandparents about this because they're like, I love my kids, but I really love my grandkids, right? And I really love to give my grandkids back. There's that. Am I right? And you have these beautiful positive and negative, sort of moments. Even as a grandparent, it's kind of like parenting. You are like cloud nine, the most amazing grandparent sometimes. And then sometimes you're not. And you leave baggage in some ways, though different. You leave baggage just the same, right? We all have positive and negative experiences around that. And then how many of you have a high school student? Do we have any high school parents in the room? You have a high school? Let's pray. I'm kidding, right? So this experience is positive and negative, right? It's positive because you're like, I'm so proud. Now you can take your brothers and sisters places, right? And then the second one that's negative is all of the bad words you used while they were driving, right? Isn't that true? There's this moment where you freak out and you get nervous and angsty, but at the same time, you're so proud. Just look at your son or look at your daughter. They're growing up. And you feel all of those things. And then I think probably one of the most, controversial or difficult moments in families is the moment that a family gets a dog, right? You know this? And here's what I mean by this, right? It's beautiful and it's amazing and your kids are happy and your wife's like, I love you so much, all that. And then the dad's sitting there thinking, this is a positive moment, but I'm going to have to walk it. You know what I mean? And you feel that sort of like positive and negative. And then some of you know the moment, some of you, and this is crazy. You had a dog and you had a dog for years and years and years. The dog passed away, and you feel this. I watch Marley and Me. I don't even have a dog. And I'm crying like a 4-year-old child. I'm losing my mind because you feel the angst of the positive and the negative and the beautiful things and the baggage kind of all wrapped into one. And that is family. That's the thing that kind of unites all of us in the room going, yeah, it's good and bad and it's messy. And I remember when my dad said this, and I also remember when he said this. I remember him not ever saying this. Or I remember when my mom did this. Or I remember the divorce. You have all of that wrapped into one. Now, one of my favorite movies of all time is a movie with Steve Carell not acting like an idiot. And this movie is called Dan in Real Life, right? Anybody ever seen Dan in Real Life? Anybody out there? All right, so this is one of my favorite movies. If you haven't seen it, I think you should go watch it. So you have to, for a second, picture him as not Michael Scott, but as a great dad, right? And so in this movie, he's got 3 daughters, right? 3 daughters. These are his daughters right here. And what he's done throughout the movie is his wife has passed away, right, years and years before. And now he falls in love with this new woman that his brother just happens to be dating, right? So that's the fun, angstiness of the entire movie. But here's what happens throughout this whole thing. Is Steve Carell's character as a father, throughout all of the tension that's surrounding this movie, is in some ways really causing hurt and pain with his daughters. And sometimes he means to, sometimes he doesn't mean to, sometimes they've caused some of it. There's all this tension throughout the whole thing. But what I love about this scene, this is the ending scene, is this is a father who's got all 3 of his daughters sitting down, and he's being extraordinarily vulnerable, and he's apologizing, and he's owning his share of the mess. And he gets to this moment, and it's a beautiful picture of all of the chaos that was created, and then this moment of vulnerability, and his daughter comes up to him, and I love this, and forgives him. And you get this beautiful picture of what the positive and negative is in this constant sort of back and forth and what our family is. And some of that is based off the idea that everyone has a family of origin. You didn't choose the who, and we all have positive and negative experiences in our family. Now, with all of that give and take, all of that is in and out of phases, right? There are these phases that your kids walk through, or that you walk through, or your nephews walk through, or your grandkids walk through, and they're extraordinarily important. And what we're basing this whole series around is this idea, right? That the way you show up in each phase will play a significant role in the health of your family. Right? Look at me for a second. The way that you show up or choose not to show up, the intentionality that you put with these phases will really develop or move you away from the health that you'll experience in your family. Now, if you're here and you're not a follower of Jesus, what I'm going to tell you is this right off the bat, is we're going to talk about a few things that either are going to feel confusing or that you disagree with at some points in the talk, and that's totally okay. In fact, if I were you and I was sitting there listening, I'd probably be arguing with me back and forth, and I think that's totally fine. That's one of my favorite things to do, and I argue with just about anybody who has a microphone in my head, so that's great. But the second thing I want to tell you is this, is that the principles that we're going to talk about today, I think are applicable to all of us. And if you're not a follower of Jesus, right, I think you're still going to be able to glean things from this talk. But I want you to ask yourself the question over these next few minutes. Is what would happen if the truths that we're going to look at, these truths that are really thousands of years old, were actually applicable to my life today and my parenting today and, our spouse kind of relationship today or whatever that looks like? What if these are actually true? And what would it look like for me to fully apply these things in my heart and in my life? And then if you disagree with me at the end, you can go out, you get free coffee, and that's fine. It'll be great. But I think these are actually going to be applicable. Now, here's the thing I want to talk about. I want to talk about this passage for a few minutes. We're going to be looking at Deuteronomy chapter 6. Now, these are the words that are being spoken by a guy named Moses. So all of us have heard of Moses. Moses is the guy who kind of puts the thing down in the sea, and he's kind of, famous for that. But Moses, in a lot of ways, was a leader of a group of people that God had chosen to do some extraordinary things. And he had promised that this group of people would, be a nation. They're going to have their own land, their own space in the world, and all of this. And what Moses does in Deuteronomy chapter 6 is he casts vision to all of these different people that are listening about what this way of living and this way of humanity could look like moving forward with people who trust God, submit to him, and then pass on their faith in an incredible way. So here's what Moses says, Deuteronomy chapter 6, verse 1. He says this. He says, "These are the commands, decrees, and laws the Lord your God directed me to teach you to observe in the land that you are crossing the Jordan to possess." So it's like, hey, we're becoming this kind of extraordinary nation. God's put us on this path to do amazing things. We're preparing in some ways for some of that. And so what Moses does is he stands up in front of this group of people as if he's the mouthpiece in some ways for what God wants to cast vision for who they're going to be. And he's going to highlight these specific insights for who they should become and who they ought to live as. And then he goes on and he says this. He says, so that you, and don't miss this, so that you, your children, and their children, so 3 generations, so that you, your children, and their children, after them, may fear the Lord your God, as long as you live by keeping all his decrees and commands that I give you, and so that you might enjoy long life. Now, this was an interesting passage that's in some ways difficult to look at, because what Moses is saying is there's a way of living and there's a set of decisions that you can make that will lead you away from God's best for your life, where you experience these sort of negative consequences in ways that you may not have to. But if you want to experience God's best, there's this posture of obedience to living in the world. The foundation for this, the foundation for this group of people and the way that they live is to obey God and to trust him and to follow wherever it is that he leads. But the fascinating thing to me about this passage, it's so easy to miss, is he's talking about what it looks like to take that posture, not just for you, but for your children and their children after them. Now, just for a second. That means that the decisions you're making now as a parent, the decisions you're making now as a grandparent, the decisions you're making now as an influencer of kids, in some ways has a ripple effect long beyond you, right? Now here's how I know that's true, because you know stories about your grandfather and your great-grandfather. You can even look at some of the predispositions we have in our family based off of some of those things. You know that that's true. You've seen the ripple effect of generation after generation after generation. That doesn't mean it's forced. That doesn't mean that you are forced to make those decisions, but it means that there is this generational influence that often goes over and over and over again. And that's incredibly important for us to remember, because it kind of lays on us this responsibility of living well and living within humanity the way that God has called us to live. In fact, we can say it this way: before we even get to your children and their children and more generations after that, we have to lead ourselves first. It's this posture of obedience into what matters right now. Now, what Moses is about to say, I think, is extraordinary, because when you look at this within the context of just words on a page, it can be easy to gloss over. But I want you to do this for a second. I want to take you back to like 3rd grade when they were like, hey, I want you to imagine for a minute, if you would. So I want you for a second to imagine this moment with Moses, and I picture him, looking a little bit like, what were those guys' names with the big long beards on TLC? You know what I'm talking about? Who are they called? The Duck Dynasty fellas, yeah. There's an image for you. So I want you to imagine this, like, because this is how I imagine it. Big old, Moses, big old beard, leader of this group of people, but he's standing up speaking. That was an amazing illustration. Speaking to all these different types of people, but the people that he's speaking to range in age from kids to people really, really old, right? And then everybody in between. And there's this communal approach that he's talking about, this passing on of faith and this passing on of this posture of obedience. I want you to imagine this, that he's casting vision for the way all of humanity should live in the ways of God. And he's casting it to such a broad group of people, and he's saying, we're going to pass it on from one generation to the next generation to the next generation, and it's going to require, in some ways, all of us coming alongside one another. Now, you can almost imagine there were orphans around. There were still kids with single parents around. There were kids, in some ways that had parents that may have been slightly disengaged around. And he's got them all united, and he's saying these words so that you, your children, and their children after them may fear the Lord. That they may live their life in a way not where they're scared, but where they come to him with obedience in what he commands them to do. To live the life that he's called them to live. It's this communal body of people, but what's so fascinating about this passage is the idea isn't just for parents. The idea is that parents would not be by themselves, right? That no one walked alone. That in the ways of passing on faith, the responsibility certainly lies with the parents. But there's a shared approach with the community that says we will come alongside one another and we will be connected and responsible for each other for what's to come. Which means every new dad who's trying to figure out how to put on a diaper might have someone to come alongside and show. That every high school parent, right, who's trying to figure out what it means to talk about life and sex and how you navigate relationships would have someone who had gone before and showed up in their lives. And when it came to talking about the deepest parts of our soul, you weren't alone in that. That there were others who'd come before you and said, here's how we do that. Here's how you inspire the beauty and the wonder in a child. And no one walked alone. And Moses goes on and he says this, hear, Israel, and be careful to obey so that it may go well with you and that you may increase greatly in a land flowing with milk and honey, experiencing God's best. Just as the Lord, the God of your ancestors, promised you. There's this way of living that's rooted so deeply in this principled living and understanding how to be in our families and how to be in the world. Inheriting God's promises and choosing to obey. And then what Moses does next is he says some of the most famous words in all of Christendom. It's one of my favorite passages to read. It's actually words that Jesus ended up quoting later on and then adding a section to it in some ways to bring more depth and clarity. And here's what he says. He says, hear, O Israel, the Lord our God, the Lord is one. And then love the Lord your God with all your heart, with all your soul, with all your strength. Now some of you read this and you've read it so many times growing up that it doesn't like hit you, because your grandmother had it on the bathroom at her house, right? Like it was like plastered on some sort of wall in some sort of gold frame or something, right? But picture the context. A big bearded Moses casting vision for generation after generation after generation, laying a foundation for all of humanity to follow and saying, here's what it hinges on. Loving the Lord your God with all of your heart. Inspire kids to love the Lord their God with all their heart, with all their soul, the deepest parts of your being, with all your strength. I love the strength part. The idea that you got your heart and you got your soul. But everything you're reaching for, you're reaching for the right things. And he's casting vision to elderly people and young families and single people, kids, high schoolers. Going, this is the way we live in the world. And then he says this, which I struggled with for a long time. He says this. He says, these commandments that I give you today are to be on your hearts. So real quick, I'm just kind of curious, how many of you hate chick flicks? Does anybody hate chick flicks in the room? Just be honest. You're sitting next to your wife, but she's okay with you being honest in church, right? Some of you are ladies. Right here, I love that. She's like, I hate it. Nicholas Sparks, want to beat him up, right? I hear you. Now, when we see this, whenever I see heart in Scripture, that's what I tend to think of. Like the moment in the Notebook where they're hugging and it ends, right? And that's what I'm like, that doesn't inspire me. That's not what he's talking about. He's not talking about this, you know. Moses is talking about your deepest emotions and those private appetites that we all have and we crave, and the deep desires and hopes and dreams and preferred future that we all carry. He's saying this: these commandments that I give you today are to be on your hearts, that you are to stay so focused and keeping your eyes locked in, because that is God's plan for you and all of humanity. Now, when I read through this, I've thought so much about what does it take with the heart of a child to embrace what Moses talks about. And I think it hinges on a word, and the word that I think it hinges on is wonder, right? It's as a parent, as an influencer of kids, as a grandparent, as a crazy uncle that you are, you know. It's when you do something extraordinary. In fact, I wanted to say this just right, and so we put it on the screen like this. But I think this is you are working to help your children know, understand, and be fully captivated by a God who commands their wonder. Let me say it one more time. That you are helping your children know, understand, and be fully captivated by a God who commands their wonder. Now, you see those as words, and it's kind of just words, right? I want to show you this picture, right? Because you know this, don't you? Because there was a time where you looked, and it was like this. And you've seen this in the heart of a child before, and it's this kind of wonder that Moses is saying all of those words are wrapped in. Now, we're a very deep family at our house, so we feel this sense of wonder at Target, you know? So this is my son at Target, right? And that's a dad fail, but we'll talk about that later, right? Bonus points because he's looking at Star Wars, right? That's pretty great. And I saw him do this, like passing the cart. He was doing it the whole time, so I snapped a picture of it. But I got to thinking, we know this, don't we? Right? Like you've seen this in your kids' eyes. You've seen this in your middle schooler's eyes when the girl said yes that he asked out, you know? You know that? You've seen this. And when Moses talks about all your heart and your strength and your soul, he talks about those things. He's talking about, in some ways, like packaging that in a way where it's given to a child in a way that they understand and they embrace and they know and they feel. And it's a God who is in distance, but he's here. And when God shows up, it's like, oh my goodness. Now the problem with us, even those of us who are followers of Jesus, like, come on, can I be one? Yeah. You don't live like this. You've been a follower of Jesus for 20 years. And you stopped living like this after 6 months in. I mean, come on. Those of us who are followers of Jesus, if you're not a follower of Jesus, you can kind of listen, but you can be disengaged for a second. Those of you who are followers of Jesus, look at me. When was the last time that you approached God like my son approaches Star Wars and Target? When was the last time that you looked up and you were like, wow? When was the last time that with your full heart and your mind and your soul and your strength and the deepest part of your humanity, you looked at God and felt small? And see, you can pray all day long. God, protect my kids. God, make my kid make good grades. God, help him to be a good person. And all that may happen, and they may miss the wonder of God that Moses is outlining. And they're looking to you as a parent to feel this for your Heavenly Father long before they ever feel it. The problem with us, and this is me too, this is 100% me too, is that we want to do incredible things for our children, but we're not have this love, and not like Nicholas Sparks love. We don't have this passionate love for God and all of what Jesus Christ did for us, we live our lives as if it's just a part of it, and it's a part. But it doesn't captivate you. It doesn't captivate you like the first time you saw your wife walk in a room. It doesn't captivate you like the first time when something was out of your control and you prayed for it and God showed up and you're like, oh my gosh. It doesn't captivate you like that. It doesn't captivate you like when you stood on a mountain and for the first time go, oh my gosh, that's not me. And we pray that our kids have it. And we pray that our kids are good people. We pray they get good grades and they make the soccer team. And all of that will matter nothing 100 years from now. What will matter is that your son or daughter feels this for God. And that happens when men feel this for God, and when women feel this for God, and when grandparents feel this for God. The most inspiring moments of my entire life is when I would sit in front of my Uncle Mac, who was in his 80s, and he'd open a Bible that was so beat up it was held together by duct tape. And he would tell me not Bible stories, but his story. That's this. And the only way you can do what Moses does next is if you embrace it. And here's the part, this is where everybody loves me. Most of us want me to write like a 3-step plan on how to do that on a really cool light-up board. Instead, I put the Kardashians. Because there's no 3-step plan to it. Ready? Here's the blunt part. Ready? If you want to capture awe and wonder with God, you decide that you're going to do it and you chase after it. You pursue that. There's no, here's 3 steps and you figure it out. It's, here's my suffering. God, I'm going to be disciplined to find you in it. Here's my joy. I'm going to find you in it. Here's all of my doubt and all of my questions and all of my difficulty, and I'm going to find you in the midst of every bit of it. So that when I sing, so that when I see words on a page, they're not just words and they're not just songs. It is awe and wonder. And I feel like that's what Moses once passed on. And then he says this, impress them, being these principles and that posture on your children. It's this massaging into the heart of a child. To teach diligently the principles and the stories. And then he says this, tie them as symbols on your hands and bind them on your foreheads. Write them on the door frames of your houses and on your gates. Tell the stories that matter. And live your life in a way where you have stories that matter. And that's not based off of what happens to you. That's based off of the perspective you take in to what happens to you. And that's how I think faith gets passed on. Now, after our 9 o'clock service today, I got done and I was walking off and I was going to go hang out in the lobby for a little bit. Before I could get off, this small woman comes running to the stage, right? And she comes running with this guy who looks like he's a teenager. I think he's in college now. And her name is Kim. His name is Ryan. And I'm going to show you their picture. This is fun. This is like an hour ago on my iPhone. iPhone's pretty great. And so we're doing this, and I love it. This is Ryan. This is Kim. And what happened with Ryan and Kim is Ryan is the best friend of Kim's son, right? And the way that she describes him immediately, which was fun and awkward at the same time, is he was a smart aleck atheist who showed up at my house, and he was my son's best friend. I love this. And Ryan shows up going, yeah, she wanted to talk about like things that are true and like the deepest parts of the hearts. And I want to talk about science and he talks about how I came from a family, that didn't really embrace this stuff. So she would talk to him and he'd go back and they'd have these like conversation after conversation and their sons were best friends. And all of a sudden he says this, and I love this. He says, but one day what she was saying begin to click. And it wasn't what she was saying. I love it. He said, it was how she lived. That she seemed to be a person who embodied the truths that she was talking about. That there was this spiritual component that I felt like I was missing, and I had all of my guards up and my walls up and all of those things, and I had all the scientific and all this stuff. But Kim broke it down by who she was and the stories that she told and the way that she showed up consistently over Ryan's life for years. Now, here's what I love that he said, and I thought this was so powerful. He says, I came to finding Jesus because Kim continually showed up in my life to show me Jesus. Now, I'm type A, and I like to read, and I'm like I want to like debate and, I love, that's, and I don't have friends. I'm just kidding, right? So that's me, right? Now, here's what I tell you. I'm kidding. Now, here's what I'll tell you, though. Brian is extraordinarily intellectual, one of the most articulate people I've ever met. Super smart, heady. What broke him down was Kim's passion and stories and passing on of faith in a way that it was real to her. And that is what I want for every single kid in Traverse City. It's not that they know everything, because some of the people who know everything are just jerks, They hadn't figured out how to live. It's that every kid in Traverse City would so fully embrace the power and the wonder of faith that by the time they go to college and a professor pulls apart whatever Genesis 1 or 2 is, and are there multiple, all that stuff, and all of a sudden their faith begins to whatever. They go, no. But Kim, it was real. I think that's the powerful part. And for you as a parent, if you're going to pass something on, you pass on character, absolutely. You pass on skills and talents, absolutely. But what would it look like if every parent were focused on passing on wonder? Because I think that's where the power is. Here's what I'm going to ask you to do, which I'd love to ask you to do in church. I'm going to ask you, everybody in the room, if you would, to pull out your cell phones for just a second. I'm not going to ask anything from you. I would just like you to pull it out. I want you to take notes on this next part. There's 3 little sentences. I just want you to have it, right? Because I want you to remember what we're going to talk about. And some of you, you've been disagreeing with me the whole time, which I love. I want you to take a picture and just debate whoever it is that you came with at lunch over. That'll be great, or just in your head debate me, but at least you'll have evidence now of what I said. This is great. There's 3 things I want you to remember as a parent. And we're going to put them up on the side screen so it's easier to take a picture of, right? And then I'm not in it, which is even better. So go ahead and take a picture if you would on the side screens. Here's the 3 things I want you to really be focused on. First one is this: that every kid needs an adult other than their parent speaking into their life, right? And that's this Kim story, right? That every single child in our city needs an adult other than their parent to speak in their lives. Grandparents, look at me, right? This isn't just you. I think one of the most powerful things that you can do as a grandparent is find other people who are in your life stage to speak into your grandkid's life. Gather all those people up and do it. Now, here's why this is so important, right? Here's why it's so important. Ladies, you know that this is true. There was a guy that you wanted to date that had 12 tattoos and a leather jacket, and you looked at your mom and you were like, Mom, I love him. And she goes, if you date him, I will kill you, right? Right? Don't date him. He's trouble, And you're like, oh, no, I love him. I'm going to date him. You're sneaking out of the house. And then somebody else who's your mom's age that you also respect looks at you and like, why are you dating him? You're like, I don't know. And that other person said the exact same thing that your mom said, but it stuck with you. And the reason that's so important is because parents, your influence is extraordinary in your kids' lives. But there will be a day, and it happens, some people in middle school, sometimes around 4 years old. It just depends on the child and how stubborn you were to your parents. I believe that. I'm just kidding. Right? But whatever that is, right? They stop listening to you fully, and they need other people to speak in their lives. This is why we have small group leaders, right? We built our entire ministry on this. If I died tomorrow, if this whole place fell apart, there's no lights, the speakers fell down, and all of a sudden the band forgot how to play music, right? If all of that fell away, if we had this for every single child in our community, we would be winning. This is what we build everything around. This is why we talk about recruiting small group leaders all the time. This is why we do it. So that as a parent, you can have someone else speaking into your child's life. The second thing is this, and I'd love you to take a picture of this one too, is you need to grow in your relationship with those who are speaking into your kids' life, right? I want you to grow in your relationship with those who are speaking into your kid's life. And here's what I mean by that. Ready? That on a Sunday, if you just drop off your kids, that's okay, and we're so glad you dropped them off. But the better thing is to have a conversation with the small group leaders that are investing in your kids. Have a conversation with the mentors that are investing in your kids. Now, here's what's amazing. Don't tell anybody this, right? But as a parent, if you have those kinds of relationships, all of a sudden something comes out, what happens? They tell you. My mom would be like, the Holy Spirit told me. And I'm like, Rose told you about that. You had the same mom, But it's powerful and it matters, right? When you grow in your relationship with the people who are influencing your kids, it's so significant. It helps you be a better parent, and it helps your kid grow in the way that they need to. And the third thing, and I say this in almost every talk that I give in some form or fashion because I believe it so much, and that's this. That you have to choose predetermined submission to God in your parenting, right? Now, here's what that means, right? And we'll wrap up. That means that I'm going to find myself in a position where I don't know what to do. And when I find myself in that position, which is most of us daily, I come to God and I say, it's genius. I don't know what to do. Lead me. And whatever you say, I will do. That I am listening and I'm predetermining that where you lead me, I will go. And when you do that, I don't miss it, when you do that, something extraordinary happens in your parenting. All right. So, last thing I want you to do for a second is I want to read this statement, and then we're actually going to do it for a second, and we'll wrap up. I want you to imagine a world where every child had another adult echoing the truths that they heard from their parents. Right? So to do this, here's what I'm going to ask you to do. I'm going to ask you for a moment, just for a moment, to close your eyes just for a second. Close your eyes just for a second. And I want you to think back on your life to one or two moments where you made an extraordinarily poor decision in middle school or high school or college or somewhere. Just think about that for a second. And what I want you to do right now is think, what would have happened in the moment that you were going to make that decision if 5 or 6 other people who loved you and cared about you and wanted your best interests at heart showed up in that moment? What would that have looked like? Now, for those of your parents, keep your eyes closed for a second. I want this next statement to just sink its way into your heart, and that's this. That your kids will find themselves at that crossroads or probably a similar crossroads of importance at some point in your life or in their life. And the question that I want you to genuinely answer in your mind is, do you want them showing up to that moment with just you or a group of people around them? I want you to look back at me. What we built this whole family ministries and student ministries and kids ministries on is the thought that 2 combined influences will make a greater impact than just 2 influences. All of this is Reggie Joiner stuff, right? Brilliant architectural stuff. 2 combined influences will make a greater impact than just 2 influences. That when you have the church or mentors or people who love and invest and care for your kids and you as a parent coming together, that will make a greater and more significant impact than you could ever make on your own. And so my hope is this, right? That in our city, and churches are known for all sorts of things, right? I hope we're the church that is known for sending people into the hearts and the lives of families so that every parent in Traverse City and every kid in Traverse City has adults that have come alongside them and they're making that impact. There's a lot of things that we could do, but I think that's the one that could change our city. That every single one of you could have that. That I could have that. My kid's 2 years old, and I think back to his small group leaders right now, and we drop them off. In some ways, they're so important to what's happening, and I hope we're able to do that. And the second thing that I hope for you is this. I hope, for those of you who are followers of Jesus, that you don't get so bogged down in busyness and life and struggle. And you don't get so bogged down in questions and suffering and pain that you allow yourself to live your 60, 70, 80, 90, 100 years of life missing that wonder that comes from God. And my hope, as I was praying for this day, is that every person that would come into this room would walk out of here, whether they have kids or not have kids or single or whatever that is, that we could all recapture that wonder and faith where we come to God open-handed and we say, wow, you have my whole heart, all of my strength. You have my mind and the deepest cravings of my soul. And I am in awe of you. Because you will never pass on the kind of faith that you want to pass on to the next generation until you are fully captivated and in awe of who God is in your own life. So what we're going to do to wrap up our time is I want to pray for you. And we're going to sing a song that's one of my favorite songs. We've sang it a couple times already. And the song is called So Will I. And for some of you, over these next few minutes, you just need to stay seated, and that's okay. I'm going to ask you to stand, but you can stay seated if that's what you want to do. Some of you, you need to just read the lyrics. Like you don't need to process anything other than the lyrics. And then some of you, I'm going to challenge you. Some of you, you've been coming to church for a long time, or maybe you haven't, and you see people do this kind of thing. You're it's kind of weird, and I don't do that anyway. And if you're introverted like me, you certainly don't do that anyway. But you've never found yourself in abandonment of your pride and your angst and your suffering. You've never done that. And today what you need to do for the first time ever is you don't even have to sing. You just do this as a symbol of God. For the first time in a long time, I'm so pursuing that wonder that I'm abandoning whatever it is I'm nervous about in this moment. And that's not all of you, but I think it's some of you. You've never raised your hands before except for a football game. But when they scored a touchdown, you were all about it. But for the first time today, you need to go hey, as a sign of what's happening in my heart, I'm pursuing that wonder, and I'm abandoning all of the other stuff that's kept me from it. God, here I am. I'm going to pursue that. And then if you're in the room and you're not a follower of Jesus, at the very least over these next few moments, you're going to get, in my mind, one of the most perfect pictures of what we believe about God and what we believe that God believes about you. And whether you're there or not, or whether you have all sort of baggage or walls, kind of like Ryan put up or not, my hope is that you just get a glimpse of what it could be if it's true. So I'm going to ask you to stand up. I want to pray for you. And we're going to sing this song together. Father, it's in the quiet that oftentimes we find ourselves kind of laid bare and vulnerable, and all of our doubts and questions and angst, fear, all of the mess is just there. Including me, some of us have been so good about building up walls and allowing ourselves to be captivated by you. For some of us, it's been so long since we actually felt that you were close, even though you say that you are. So, Father, over these next few moments, I ask that you would remind us how close you are. And I pray over these next few moments that you would start something in our hearts that isn't quenched or isn't satisfied, but it is this pursuit of this wonder that our faith really lives in. And I ask that these next few moments would feel nothing but sacred. For the people in the room that have lost that, God, that they would begin to find it. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
God of creation, there at the start, before the beginning of time. With no point of reference, you spoke to the dark, and fleshed out the wonder of light. And as you speak, 100 billion galaxies are born. In the vapor of your breath, the planets form. If the stars were made to worship, so will I. I can see your heart in everything you've made. Every burning star, a signal fire of grace. If creation sings your praises, so will I. God of your promise, you don't speak in vain, no syllable empty or void. For once you have spoken, all nature and science follow the sound of your voice. And as you speak, 100 billion creatures catch your breath, evolving in pursuit of what you said. If it all reveals your nature, so will I. I can see your heart in everything you say. Every painted sky, canvas of your grace. If creation still obeys you, so will I. So will I. So will I. If the stars were made to worship, so will I. If the mountains bow in reverence, so will I. If the oceans roar your greatness, so will I. For if everything exists to lift you high, so will I. If the wind goes where you send it, so will I. If the rocks cry out in silence, so will I. If the sum of all our praises still falls short, then we'll sing again 100 billion God of salvation, you chase down my heart through all of my failure and pride. On a hill you created, the light of the world, abandoned in darkness to die. And And as you speak, 100 billion failures disappear. Where you lost your life so I could find it here. If you left the grave behind you, so will I. I can see your heart and everything you've done. Every part designed in a work of art called love. If you gladly chose surrender, so will I can see your heart 8 billion different ways. Every precious one, a child you died to save. If you gave your life to love them, so will I. Like you would again 100 billion times. But what measure could amount to your desire? You're the one who never leaves the one behind.
So this week, here's what I want to say to some of you. As we were talking about the wonder, as we were talking about capturing that wonder, you're like, as soon as I said it, you knew that was you. And I don't think there's this big, long, step plan, but here's what I challenge you to do this week is for 3 minutes or 5 minutes or 10 minutes this week, just pray that. Say, God, I want to pursue this wonder, and I want to discover that. And I want you this week to focus on what that looks like to continually pursue it, even if it's just for a few minutes every day. Dads in the room, come on. I know you got a lot going on. You're busy, and you're not an emotional guy anyway. Come on, I'm with you. But I would just say this. That pursuit could change the entire trajectory of your family. It could, if you would choose to do that. The second thing that I want to tell you, some of you, when it comes to parenting stuff, you're like, some of the practical stuff you were talking about, we need to figure out how do we get people around us, that sort of thing. So I want to tell you about a couple of things real quick. In the lobby, throughout the series, there's this bookstore. What we did is we literally bought the books for exactly how much they cost. We're not making anything on it. We just wanted to get these in your hands really as soon as you left. This entire series, and somewhat, is based off of these 3 books. These are my favorite parenting books, and I've read a lot of them. Parenting Beyond Your Capacity, that's Reggie Joyner and Carrie Newhoff. A lot of what we talked about today is found in there. Don't Miss It is really kind of what the series is based on, this idea of what it looks like with the phases and how you can make sure to show up correctly in all those phases. And the last one, specifically, if you have a middle school student or a high school student, this is one of my favorite books for you, right? This is called For Parents Only. It's by Shanti Felton. There's so many great insights on there in terms of how you communicate, what it looks like. We're going to be talking about that through the series, but you get a head start on that. And all that is in the bookstore right outside that way, whatever that's right for you, left for me. Last thing is a lot of you are interested in a volunteer meeting that we're doing afterwards. You're like, where do I go, right? So many of you are signed up for that. I want to tell you this is a map. We're going to leave this on the screen so you can know. But if you're in guest services, production arts, kids or students, or if you're just undecided, I'm trying to figure it out, we have one of those places for you. So those are all going to be up here on the screen. We'll have them up there for you as you're leaving, and then we'll go from there. Hey, thanks so much for being here. Next week, we continue this series, and we're going to be talking specifically about you, conflict in your family, what that looks like. Thanks so much for being here. We'll see you right back here next Sunday. Hey, thank you so much for watching online today as well. And all those resources I just talked about are available to you. You can download those really quickly and easily on Amazon. They're all great resources for you that can spur you on in influencing a child, whether you're a parent or you're just an influencer in your community or a small group leader. We'd love to get those in your hands. Next week, we're continuing this series. We'd love to invite you back. You can do that at one of our live campuses in Metro Detroit, here in Traverse City, or in Orlando. Or, again, you can watch one of our services live online as well. Again, thanks so much for watching. We'll see you right back here soon. Thanks.